However, just because the fierce cavalry did not speak, it did not mean that the others would not speak. Only to hear, "AI, Miss Chu, I heard that you went deep into the tiger's den and got injured to help Brother Xiao obtain those two important pieces of information. You're really too brave." Sure enough, those who follow Brother Xiao are not ordinary people. Yi Lingfeng fanned himself with a paper fan and sipped his tea, speaking in a strange tone. Every word that came out of his mouth stepped on Xiao Su's sore spot. As soon as his words fell, not only did Xiao Su's expression change, Chu Qingyan's face also darkened. Was this person praising her or trying to sow discord? He was simply touching the pot that didn't boil. Could it be that he was bearing a grudge because of what she said in the afternoon? If that was the case, then he was as petty as Bai Xiaosheng. "Young Master Yi, I didn't get injured because of the information. There's another reason. Can you not confuse people, okay?" Chu Qingyan said in a bad mood. "Oh. Then what's the reason?" Yi Lingfeng wanted to get to the bottom of it. He completely ignored Chu Qingyan's knife-like gaze. Because of her words, he had been pestered by Du Guqing for several hours. And because of that sentence, he had been feeling uneasy the entire night. Usually, Chu Qingyan was protected like a treasure by Xiao Su. Now that he had finally caught her tail, how could he let her off easily? "I'm not telling you." Chu Qingyan secretly glanced at the ice cube's cold face, and turned back to glare at Yi Lingfeng in fright. Can't this person have some eyesight? Can't he see that she doesn't want to say? It was rare for her to be so deflated. Yi Lingfeng wanted to open his mouth to tease her, but he was shocked by the cold words floating from above. "Don't quarrel, Lingfeng. You're not young anymore. Why are you making things difficult for a child?" Yi Lingfeng couldn't help but twitch his mouth. To be so protective of her to this extent, he had to give it to him. Prioritizing love over friendship? Hearing the ice cube's words, Chu Qingyan was secretly delighted. The ice cube still cared about her. But unfortunately, the cold words from above also came crashing down. "The matter of you being injured, I'll settle it with you later." Chu Qingyan was stunned. Yes. Seeing their master and the princess consort interact, Hualing and the others all held back their laughter. This interaction was too funny. Yi Lingfeng looked at Chu Qingyan's lowered head and his heart calmed down. This brother of his was quite fair. But Yi Lingfeng forgot one thing. If it wasn't for Xiao Su speaking up, Chu Qingyan would have been forced to say the reason. How could Xiao Su not see that Chu Qingyan didn't want to talk about this topic? He only spoke up because he didn't want to make things difficult for her, so Xiao Su was still protective of her. It was a pity that Yi Lingfeng did not think of this and was still feeling smug. Back to the topic, let's talk about tonight's topic first. Xiao Su's voice returned to normal as he said coldly, "Hualing Turan, tell us the information you've gathered." Hualing spoke first. "This afternoon, we brought people to investigate the surroundings of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace. We found that their guards were the same as a few days ago. The number of guards only increased. Our people are not familiar with the terrain of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace. If we want to sneak into the imperial palace at night and search for the ice crystal flower, we may have to consider it at length." Turan continued. "This subordinate has already sent a messenger pigeon to Water Spirit, asking her to focus on the Shang Kingdom. If there's the whereabouts of the love grass, she should immediately inform us." Xiao Su nodded. He turned to ask Yi Lingfeng, "Can we get the map of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace?" At this time, Yi Lingfeng had already put away his frivolous appearance and was still waving his fan. He said with a serious expression, "I'm afraid we'll have to wait for another 2 days. Recently, the Imperial Household Department has not purchased any cloth. Moreover, the people in the Imperial Palace only enter and do not leave. The people I sent out also did not receive any news. When the security in the Imperial Palace is relaxed, I'll contact the people inside." Xiao Su nodded. "If we can't get the topographic map within 3 days, I'm afraid Turan will have to bring people to make a trip there personally." At this time, Cheng Yanluo spoke. "I went back and checked the information about that doctor from the Shang Kingdom today. There are only 3 people who meet the 3 conditions of being a person of virtue and prestige, being acquainted with the 100 Herb Mountain Lord, and having already passed away." "Which 3 people?" Chu Qingyan asked with widened eyes. She originally thought that the love grass would have to fish in the sea of the Shang Kingdom. She did not expect that they could narrow down the search area in one day. She could not be more lucky. Chapter 451. Cheng Yanluo didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "One is the famous folk doctor Zhang Zhaotian, the other is Wei Hongfeng from a medical family, and the last one is Shang country's imperial physician Ma Wu. I think we can start our investigation from these three people." Cheng Yanluo had just finished speaking when Ethereal continued. This subordinate has also checked the information on Shang country's medical practitioners in the past 20 years. Indeed, these three match the information given by young Princess Consort. However, this subordinate thinks we can eliminate Wei Hongfeng from a medical family. As soon as he finished speaking, Cheng Yanluo was displeased. She felt that he was deliberately making things difficult for her by picking on her. She crossed her arms and said provocatively, "Why can you eliminate Wei Hongfeng? I think he could have gotten the seed of the love grass." Ethereal could hear the hostility in her words. He smiled and said to his master, "Wei Hongfeng had a falling out with the 100 Herbs Mountains chieftain 20 years ago because of the ownership of a medicinal herb. They have not contacted each other since then, so it's impossible for the 100 Herbs Mountains chieftain to give away such a precious seed of the love grass." Cheng Yanluo was slightly taken aback when she heard this. She muttered, "Why didn't I know about this?" Ethereal's ears were sharp and he didn't say anything else. His junior sister was good at everything, but sometimes she was careless. After so many years, she still hadn't changed. If that's the case, then it's even better. "Master, we can start from the remaining 2 medical practitioners and eliminate them one by one. Even if they give it away or plant it successfully, we can follow the vine to find the melon and finally find the specific location." Huling said happily. Xiao Su's expression eased a lot. "We need someone to go to Shang country to investigate. Who will go?" Huling stood up. "Master, let this subordinate go. Turin's men are better at spying. It'll be easier to investigate the ice crystal flower, and it'll be better for them to stay by your side." Xiao Su pondered for a moment before nodding. "I approve your request. When the time comes, ask Water Spirit to send someone to assist you." "Yes, this subordinate will set off tomorrow." Huling agreed. Xiao Su turns to Yi Lingfeng and says, "Lingfeng, if the Imperial Household Department needs you to deliver goods into the palace, I will have Turin arrange a few people to sneak in." "No problem." Yi Lingfeng agreed. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that although Yi Lingfeng looked unreliable, he was reliable in his work. Also, he trusted Big Ice Cube completely. He had agreed to Big Ice Cube's plan without a second thought. If they were found out, the entire Yi family would be implicated. But Chu Qingyan guessed that it might be because he had confidence in Xiao Lai Mount's ability. Cheng Yanluo excused herself when she saw that they were almost done discussing the herbs. However, before she left, she winked meaningfully at Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan immediately rolled her eyes at her. Other than Cheng Yanluo's ethereal account, no one else was aware of their interaction. However, he couldn't understand what the 2 girls were talking about, so he left as well. Turin still had things to design, so he left first. Only Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, Yi Lingfeng, Huling and Turin were left in the room. "Master, Water Spirit sent a letter saying that the Imperial family hasn't given up on searching for you. His Majesty has suppressed the news of your disappearance, and plans to expand the search to the entire country." Turin reported. "Even if it's suppressed, the people who should know should already know. Everyone just knows what's going on. Only the common people can be deceived." Yi Lingfeng's lips curved into a mocking smile. Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. "There are many people in the Imperial family who want me dead. As long as Imperial Father doesn't find any news of me in half a year, they will give up the search and admit that I'm no longer alive." When Chu Qingyan heard this, she could not help but feel a little sad. She felt bad for the ice cube. The reason why the West Xiandarch kept searching for the ice cube was because he wanted to make sure that the ice cube was dead. If it was dead, that would be the best. Then the West Xiandarch could rest easy. If it was still alive, then the West Xiandarch would not allow the ice cube to continue living in this world. The emperor was cold and ruthless. Accompanying him was like accompanying a tiger. Although Big Ice said this with a calm expression, she knew that he was still feeling very sad. Who could accept the fact that their biological father wouldn't let them live? I'm just worried that some people won't let you go. As long as they don't find your corpse, they won't be able to rest easy. Yi Lingfeng shook his head. He felt that his good friend was really pitiful. He had worked so hard for his country for so many years, but in the end, he ended up like this. He couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Su thought of Consort Yu and the people hiding in the dark. His face darkened. Then let's make them feel uneasy. The way to torture someone was not to kill them with a stab. Instead, it was to grind them bit by bit like a needle. It wouldn't make them feel pain, but it would be hard to ignore. I don't think they'll find the Jiang Kingdom in a short time. Let's get rid of the snake's kiss poison first, then we'll act according to the situation. Turin interrupted. Everyone nodded. Miss Chu, you haven't said a word tonight. It's a bit strange. When the conversation was about to end, Yi Lingfeng turned to look at her. Chu Qingyan was taken aback by the sudden mention of her name. However, everyone's gazes were already on her. Even the Big Ice Cube's gaze landed on her once again. This Yi Lingfeng was really too much. Couldn't he see that she was trying to reduce her presence? In the end, he still wanted to make things difficult for her. She could only brace herself and meet everyone's gaze. I don't have any objections. I just want to find the ice crystal flower and the love grass as soon as possible. It seems that Miss Chu really has deep feelings for Brother Xiao. This humble one admires you. Yi Lingfeng smiled and cupped his hands. Chu Qingyan felt that this Yi Lingfeng was really too much. Wasn't it just a sentence? He still held a grudge until now. Alright, that's about it for today. You all should go back and rest, Xiao Su said. Everyone retreated. Soon, only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were left in the study. Xiao Su glanced at her. He didn't say anything else. He just picked up the letter on the desk and started to read it. Chu Qingyan twisted her fingers. She couldn't stand the silence in the room. After a long time of mental preparation, she stood up and walked around the desk to his side. Big Ice, are you still angry with me? Angry? Xiao Su raised his head from the book. He looked at her with a cold gaze. Why should I be angry? Because Chu Qingyan scratched her head. It's over. Isn't this back to where you were wrong? In the end, she couldn't help but cry. Big Ice, just tell me where I was wrong. I already can't think of anything. Just remind me not to be so petty. Xiao Su felt that he had never failed in this little fellow's ability to understand. Also, when was he petty? Chapter 452. Xiao Su decided to ignore her tonight and let her reflect on herself. He absolutely could not indulge her again. Otherwise, if she dared to go overboard today, she would be even more lawless next time. Chu Qingyan saw that he had lowered his head to read again, as if he did not want to pay attention to her. Chu Qingyan was a little anxious. This was the first time that the Big Ice Block ignored her. She did not know how to solve the problem between the two of them, because she did not know what kind of answer he wanted. Xiao Su felt that the person beside him was not moving. Although it was strange, he did not think too much about it. The little fellow needed to be taught a lesson. Chu Qingyan did not know what he was thinking. At this time, she was thinking about how to make the Big Ice Block cool down. Unfortunately, the series of things that happened today had already exhausted her. Her brain could not work, so she simply took action. Her body moved according to her heart. She reached out and hugged his neck from behind, then leaned on him. Big Ice Block, don't be angry. I was wrong. I just don't know what I did wrong. Tell me. I will definitely change. When she leaned on him, he had already felt it. If it was anyone else, he would have thrown them out long ago. But since it was her, he could not do it. The warm breath and soft voice made the softest part of his heart collapse in an instant. He felt that he could accept her attitude of admitting her mistake, but when she said that she did not know what she did wrong, he still felt that he could not forgive her. You really don't know what you did wrong? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. As soon as his voice fell, he felt that pair of little hands tighten slightly, her little face buried deeper. Then he heard her negotiating tone. Can my merit make up for my mistake? She could not answer, so she changed the topic. Xiaosu did not know whether to laugh or cry at her actions. Yes. Xiaosu felt that the punishment was enough. She could not think of anything. No matter how angry he was, she still did not know the reason. It was useless. However, he did not expect that he would be so angry with someone one day. However, the little fellow's contribution this time was indeed great. It was understandable for him to reward him. As soon as Xiaosu spoke, Chu Qingyan was so excited that she raised her head and kissed him on the cheek. She didn't even notice that Xiaosu's body had stiffened because of her sudden action. Then she hugged his neck and jumped up and down. I knew that big ice block was the best. Not only can you hold a boat in a prime minister's stomach, but you're also very righteous. You're the most generous person I've ever met, oh yeah. Ouch, my hand. As soon as she jumped, her extreme joy turned to sorrow and she pulled on her wound. Xiaosu hadn't recovered from his shock when he heard her cry. Without thinking, he pulled her in front of him and reached out to check her arm. Xiaosu frowned and said, "Who told you to jump around like that? Your wound has split open." Chu Qingyan's face was full of regret. Wasn't she too happy? How could she remember that she was still injured? Seeing her hang her head, Xiaosu knew that she was regretting it. He sighed softly and stopped lecturing her. He took the medicine and gauze from the table and prepared to help her change her dressing. When Chu Qingyan saw the medicine on the table, she couldn't help but be curious. Shouldn't this be hers? Why was it in the study? She didn't know that Xiaosu had asked Ethereal to prepare the medicine in the courtyard in case she needed it. However, he didn't expect that it would come in handy so soon. Chu Qingyan was about to say something, but she heard him say sternly, "Don't move. Be careful not to touch the wound." Okay. This time she didn't dare to move. She sat obediently and watched as he untied her gauze and applied the medicine. She was sitting and he was standing. From her angle, she could see his lowered eyebrows and serious expression. She realized that whenever Big Ice Block was focused on something, his gaze was very special. His black eyes seemed to gather all the starlight, but this starlight wasn't bright. Instead, it seemed to be isolated in glass. It was thick and clear, as if it had a magical power. As long as she looked at him, her heart would calm down and she would calm down. Men who were serious were the most charming. There was no doubt about this. The white gauze was wrapped around his slender fingers. His fingers moved quickly and quickly tied a knot. It was so fast that she was dazzled. Big Ice Block's movements were very practiced. This was not only because he had suffered too many injuries on the battlefield, but also because in this year, he had bandaged her many times. How could practice not make perfect? It's done. Xiaosu retracted his hand and kept the medicine bottle and gauze. Chu Qingyan touched the gauze on her arm and looked at him secretly. Big Ice Block, you said that you wouldn't be angry with me. You can't go back on your words. Xiaosu was a little depressed at first, but after hearing her childish words, it all disappeared. He couldn't help but smile. I've never been the one who went back on my word. Chu Qingyan was confused. I didn't go back on my word. The depression that had dissipated seemed to gather again. He put down the medicine bottle and leaned closer to her. Who was the one who said that no matter what happened in the future, she wouldn't hide it from me? Hearing that, she couldn't help but lower her head. Big Ice Block, I know where I was wrong. Xiaosu was a little surprised. You know where you were wrong? She nodded hard. I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. I shouldn't have not discussed it with you. I won't do it in the future. With that said, she raised her head and looked into his eyes sincerely, indicating that she really wouldn't be so reckless again. She tugged at his sleeve lightly and her eyes were filled with self-reproach. Xiaosu's heart softened. He raised his hand and placed it on top of her head, a faint smile on his lips. Actually, you've done very well this time. You're brave and resourceful, and you've managed to find the whereabouts of the two herbs. You've contributed greatly, but I hope that you'll always remember that in the future, you're not allowed to make decisions on your own. You're not allowed to deceive me, and you're not allowed to bring guards with you. If you were to act alone, I wouldn't be able to help you. You have to know that the outside world is different from home. No one will give in to you, and no one will care about your feelings. If you're not strong enough to make others fear you, then you should try your best to protect yourself. If you don't want to be strong enough, you must be strong enough to protect yourself. Big Ice Block was right. She knew that it wasn't easy for him to say so much. I know. I will always remember that. I apologize. It's not that I didn't remember what you said before, but I was afraid that if I said it, you wouldn't agree to let me go. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and spoke out her biggest worry. Xiao Su stroked her long hair and smiled faintly. If you think that you have enough strength, are you afraid that I won't agree? So you still need to grow. She admitted that she didn't have the ability to make others feel assured. I'm just worried about you going alone, but that doesn't mean that I won't let you go. He suddenly said. Her eyes widened. Big Ice Block, what do you mean? If there's a next time, I'll go with you. He smiled gently. She did it because of his poison. How could he bear to be so harsh? Chapter 453. Chu Qingyan's eyes reddened uncontrollably. She felt that in the past year, besides her parents, the person in front of her was the one who had tolerated her the most. He didn't like to speak and didn't have many sweet words. He would only use his actions and the most simple words to tell you that he would give you a piece of the sky, and that you could fly freely without worry. Xiao Su didn't know what he had said wrong, but the little fellow in front of him actually turned red. He had no experience in coaxing people, so he could only clumsily hold her in his arms. He sighed softly and said, I'm not angry anymore. You don't have to blame yourself. Just be careful in the future, and don't pretend to be obedient. Chu Qingyan rubbed her eyes and said embarrassedly, I know, Big Ice Cube. I haven't changed my clothes when I came back. I'm so smelly. I don't want to dirty your clothes. Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh at her words. In the past, when we were on the battlefield, we didn't bathe for 4 or 5 days and still came out like this. I'm not that precious. But after speaking, he let go of her, mainly because he was worried that he would touch her wound. Was the war very tiring? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask when she heard him talk about the battlefield. It's not hard at all. I'm just doing my part, Xiao Su said with a faint smile. Chu Qingyan tilted her head. Then will you go back in the future? Xiao Su looked at her calmly and said naturally, I can't go back. These 4 words stunned Chu Qingyan. Could he not go back to the peaceful days of the past? Or was it because of Xishuan's assassination that he couldn't go back? Or both? Chu Qingyan didn't ask further. Since Big Ice Cube could answer her question so calmly, it meant that he already had a plan in mind. She had once told Yan Luo that she would follow him wherever he went. The world was big, and as long as they were together, they would be home. Oh yes, when I was at the Blue Manor, I exchanged something good. I don't know if you'll like it. Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of the most important thing, so she quickly took out the small box and handed it to Xiao Su. Xiao Su looked at the ebony box lying in her palm, and was a little surprised. What is this? You'll know once you open it. Chu Qingyan urged expectantly, but at the same time, she was nervous. This was the first time she bought something for Big Ice Cube, although it was an exchange. Xiao Su didn't ask any more questions. He reached out and opened the lid. It was already late at night. Although candles were lit in the study, it was still a little dark. When the heartless bead appeared in front of Xiao Su, a thin layer of light green light enveloped the entire bead. The white jade body seemed to be lying on a tender green lotus leaf, lustrous and bright, small and exquisite, extremely cute. Big Ice Cube, I'll give it to you. Do you like it? Chu Qingyan asked carefully, afraid that he would not like it. Xiao Su felt that the little bead was cute, but it was not suitable for a man like him. He frowned slightly and said, Keep it for yourself. I don't need it. When these words came out, Chu Qingyan's face suddenly fell. Sure enough, Big Ice Cube didn't like this kind of pearl jade. Sensing the little fellow's depression, Xiao Su began to reflect on whether he had said the wrong thing. He opened his mouth to comfort her. Actually, this bead is very good. It's just that you girls are more suitable for this kind of thing. Chu Qingyan sighed. Big Ice Cube must not like it, so he comforted her like this. But even if he didn't like this bead, he still had to accept it. Big Ice Cube, this is not an ordinary pearl. It's called the Heartless Bead. It's a rare poison repellent bead that can detoxify common poisons in the world. But the snake's kiss poison's toxicity is too strong, so it can't be detoxified. But it has a great effect, which is to control the poison in your body when you use your qi. This means that as long as you wear this heartless bead, your qi will not be restricted. So whether you like it or not, you have to accept it. And before the poison is detoxified, you can't take it off. Otherwise, I'll get angry with you. At the end of her speech, she had unknowingly become overbearing. She took out the bead from the box and stuffed it into his hand, looking like she would cry in front of him if he dared to refuse. Xiao didn't think that was her intention. He felt that the warm bead in his hand was actually a little hot, and warmth surged into his heart. Such a small poison repellent bead, it's really rare. He opened his palm and looked at the bead. Condensed is the essence. Chu Qingyan took the opportunity to point at herself. For example, although I'm not tall, my brain isn't bad. Xiao reached out and pinched her face. You're quite thick-skinned. Chu Qingyan grimaced and covered her face. How could that be? Anyway, you have to accept it. For this bead, I even offended a noble lady from Jiang country. I don't even know if I'll be unlucky enough to meet her in Jiang country. I hope that even if I meet her, I won't be recognized by her. Otherwise, it'll be bad for our business. Oh, tell me about it. He was quite curious about how she had bid for this heartless bead. It wasn't that he hadn't heard of Lon Manor's reputation. For a heartless bead to be placed in an auction, there would be a lot of competition, and the difficulty would also be high. How did this little fellow win this bead? Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard this. It should be said that it's luck and strength. She jokingly told Xiao about how she and that noble lady from Jiang country competed for this heartless bead in detail. Although her tone was cheerful, the more Xiao listened, the more he felt that this gift was valuable. 1,000 gold pieces were easy to obtain, but a thought was hard to come by. He suddenly felt that this little bead was quite pleasing to the eye. After she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled, teasing him. A pearl of fine jade, worthy of a hero, it's worth it. Xiao felt her jubilant mood, and couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. Originally, this time he was in a bad mood because the little fellow followed others to Lon Manor, and didn't report to him. But when he received the heartless bead that she had painstakingly obtained, that little bit of displeasure dissipated. In the little fellow's heart, his weight was far more important than her so-called friend. It wasn't that he didn't think of thoroughly investigating the identity of her friend, but when he invited Turin, he finally gave up. He said that he would give her an independent world and let her grow up freely, so he couldn't interfere with her right to make friends. He didn't want to experience the feeling of being imprisoned and controlled by others to happen to the little fellow again. Chu Qingyan didn't know that unknowingly, her family's big ice block was jealous because of Higashio Motetsu. It was a pity that the person involved didn't know, and she didn't know either. So a slightly sour breath drifted with the wind between her 10 years old and his 20 years old age. The best years were nothing more than unscrupulous fighting, and having someone to accompany you. By the way, Big Ice Block, that all-knowing man in ganghood left me a note, asking me to go to the all-knowing sect to find him if something happened. After saying that, Chu Qingyan took out the note and handed it to him. Today, everyone's attention was on the news of the ice crystal flower and the love grass, so she forgot about this matter. Xiao took the note and fell into deep thought. Chapter 454. I don't know much about the all-knowing man in ganghood, but according to your description, he must have taken a fancy to the item you have, Xiao concluded. Chu Qingyan nodded and said unhappily, I think so. He looks very gentle, but he's too narrow-minded. He could have written down the exact location of the ice crystal flower, but he gave it a range. It's clear that he planned this. I'll think of something in the next 2 days and ask the wood spirit to help me complete it. When the time comes, I'll have someone bring it to the all-knowing sect to find him, and exchange it for the exact location of the ice crystal flower. If that doesn't work, we can get the topographic map of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace. Xiao nodded. That's one way. Chu Qingyan was indescribably happy to receive the big ice cube's affirmation. She turned around and hugged him, then said joyfully, "Big ice cube, you'll definitely get better. You definitely will." Xiao Su smiled but didn't answer. After a day of running around, Chu Qingyan went back to rest. Xiao Su watched her yawn every 3 steps, shook his head and laughed. His gloomy mood also lightened up a lot because of this. The secret letter from Xishuan on the table was pushed to the bottom of the book by him. His Majesty intended to appoint the 4th prince as the crown prince, but he was opposed by the faction led by Prime Minister Liang, the 3rd prince, the 2nd prince, and the faction that believed that the crown prince should be inherited by the eldest son of the first wife. His Majesty took his anger out on Prime Minister Liang's faction. He used the excuse of one of Prime Minister Liang's officials being drunk and neglecting his duty to purge many military officials in Prime Minister Liang's faction, demoting them or transferring them to other places. The Empress was furious in the harem. Xiao Su's expression was calm. These things had nothing to do with him anymore, so there was no need to be tangled up. After waking up from her sleep, Chu Qingyan felt much better. After washing up, she took her sword and went to the courtyard to practice for 2 hours. After changing her clothes, she began to research the things she wanted to send to Chu Qingyan. It had to be something that didn't exist in this world, and was novel enough that it wouldn't affect this world. This caused Chu Qingyan to rack her brains for a long time before she finally finalized the draft and sent it to the Wood Spirit. Among all the cavalry masters of Valiant Blaze Mount, Wood Spirit admired Chu Qingyan the most, and was also the most obedient. Mu Ling was experienced and knowledgeable, and his skills were superb, but every time the young princess took out a piece of paper, he would willingly admit defeat. Arrogant people would also lower their noble heads when they met someone stronger than them, let alone someone as talented and arrogant as Mu Ling. When Mu Ling received her blueprint, he was pleasantly surprised. He immediately gathered people to research it, and prepared to turn it into a real object. Chu Qingyan recalled the time at the auction. Bai Xiaoxing's gaze had landed on the lipstick in her hand more than 3 times. Perhaps he had developed an interest in her lipstick. Although she didn't know what a man like him would use it for, she would send him a copy when the time came, just in case. So she said to Mu Ling, "Make a few more copies of the bamboo box and bamboo tube that I asked you to make last time. I want to make a new lipstick." "As you command," Mu Ling replied. "Oh right, that magnifying glass, do you still have any ready-made ones? I want to give one to my father, and one to His Highness." Chu Qingyan asked. Mu Ling smiled bitterly. "Master Chu came to this subordinate's room yesterday, and already took one away. This subordinate still has one here. I will bring it to you now." Every time Master Chu came to find him, he would always make a mess of his room. Moreover, when he left, he would always take some of his things, causing him to suffer unspeakably. Chu Qingyan naturally knew what kind of personality her father had. She said apologetically, "My father doesn't have many hobbies. He just likes some strange things. If he has caused you trouble, please don't take it to heart." How could Mu Ling bear the young princess consort's apology? He waved his hands. It is this subordinate's good fortune to be able to gain Master Chu's favor. "Young princess consort, please don't say that." Who knew that? Speak of the devil. Mu Ling had just finished speaking when a vigorous voice sounded. "Blockhead, I've brought good fortune for you." Mu Ling's back stiffened when he heard this. "It's over, the king of destruction is here again." Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw her father standing at the door. She went up to him. "Father, you're here to play with Mu Ling again?" "Father isn't here to play. I'm here to research something fun with Mu Ling," Father Chu replied in all seriousness. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Even if you beat her to death, she didn't believe that her father could research anything. She just pitied Mu Ling. Before she left, she heard cries of disbelief coming from the room. "Master Chu, you can't break that wing. Master Chu, you can't break that wheel. You have to be careful. These pearls are priceless." Chu Qingyan slapped her forehead. She didn't hear anything. She didn't hear anything at all. After Mu Ling's 2 days of research, it was quickly completed. Chu Qingyan had Turin send someone to bring it, and the lipstick to the all-knowing sect in exchange for information. Unfortunately, Bai Xiaoxing, who had just finished his trip to the Blue Manor, was sitting in a carriage and rushing to the all-knowing sect. He had been away from home for many days. He didn't know if his wife would be bored by herself. Although he didn't show it on his face, he was already impatient to see his wife. However, at this time, a winged cavalry warrior swiftly arrived and delivered an urgent letter. Bai Xiaosheng saw that it was about his wife and immediately opened it. After reading 10 lines at a glance, the corners of his eyes twitched. Ai saw that his master's expression wasn't good and immediately asked, "Master, did something happen to Madam?" He heard his master gnash his teeth and say, "Madam ran away from home again." Ai's eyes widened. How many times had this happened this year? His master had such a hard life. He had to start his life of chasing after his wife again. Someone turn the carriage around and look for Madam. Bai Xiaosheng ordered coldly. Then, master, didn't you ask that little girl to go to the all-knowing sect to look for you? Ai asked hesitantly. Bai Xiaosheng looked at him coldly. Is there anything in this world that is more important than Madam? Ai immediately lowered his head. Yes, yes, yes. Madam is the most important. More important than anything else. He had no choice but to accept his master who doted on his wife like his own life. He only hoped that little girl would find the whereabouts of the ice crystal flower as soon as possible. His master didn't play by the rules. Thus, Bai Xiaosheng's carriage went in the opposite direction and brushed past Xiao Lai's cavalry that Turan had sent. Going in the opposite direction, they went further and further away. When Xiao Lai's cavalry arrived at the all-knowing sect to seek an audience with Bai Xiaosheng, they were told that their master wasn't in the manor, and that his return date was uncertain. Xiao Lai's cavalry returned without success. He really dropped the ball at a crucial moment. By the time Chu Qingyan found out about this matter, a few days had already passed. She was furious. Was this Bai Xiaosheng toying with her again? He was simply too hateful. However, she didn't know that Bai Xiaosheng, whom she had cursed no less than 100 times, was currently distracted by his wife. How could he have the leisure to care about these things? However, at this time, Yi Lingfeng brought good news. Chapter 455. Early in the morning, Yi Lingfeng hurriedly entered the courtyard. What orders brought young Master Yi here? Chu Qingyan was reading a book when she saw Yi Lingfeng enter. I think it should be Shifeng, the wind of a joyous occasion. Yi Lingfeng straightened his collar and said pretentiously. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and smiled. You're getting married? Who's the bride? Cough cough. Yi Lingfeng, who was about to speak, choked on his own saliva. He pointed at Chu Qingyan and said angrily to Xiao Su, who was not far away. Why don't you control your little wife? She's always blabbering. Xiao Su dipped his brush in ink and didn't even give him a look. What she asked is exactly what I wanted to ask. It's time for you to get married. Yi Lingfeng felt that he despised this unscrupulous and villainous couple. All right, I won't beat around the bush with you. I received news today that in 7 days, His Majesty of the Jiang Kingdom will host a banquet in the Imperial Garden. When the time comes, the palace gates will be wide open. Although the security will be strict, there will be too many people. You can take the opportunity to sneak in. Yi Lingfeng immediately informed Xiao Su of the news he received. Xiao Su stopped writing. In 7 days, if we search blindly, I'm afraid the chances of finding the ice crystal flower are not high. It's best to get it in one strike. Did you get the topographic map? Yi Lingfeng felt that what he said was reasonable. The banquet was only 4 to 6 hours, but the imperial palace was so big that it was like finding a needle in a haystack. He replied, I've got the topographic map, mainly the few palaces that His Majesty frequents. But it's not very detailed, only the general location. This time, the Jiang Kingdom is heavily guarded. It's not easy to get this topographic map. Xiao Su nodded. Thank you for your hard work. Give the topographic map to Turan and let him arrange it. Yi Lingfeng waved his paper fan and said with a smile, We're brothers. Your business is my business. No need to be so formal. At this time, Chu Qingyan silently raised her hand. I have a question. Ask, Xiao Su said concisely. Chu Qingyan walked up to the two of them and asked seriously. We know that the ice crystal flower is in the imperial palace, but why do we have to resort to stealing? Can't we make a deal with the emperor of the Jiang Kingdom? Yi Lingfeng laughed. He ignored Chu Qingyan's roll of the eyes and turned to look at Xiao Su. Is it better for your little wife to be simple or stupid? Although Xiao Su didn't reply, his eyes flickered with a mysterious light, causing Yi Lingfeng to shift his gaze away. This guy was forgetting his friends when he saw a girl. What is young Master Yi's opinion? Why don't you tell me? Chu Qingyan crossed her arms and asked impolitely. If he couldn't give a reasonable answer, she would make him take back what he said just now. Yi Lingfeng waved his folding fan and sat down on a chair. He looked at Chu Qingyan calmly. The emperor of the Jiang kingdom doesn't lack anything. The country is rich, the people live and work in peace and contentment. His family of 5 is harmonious and beautiful. What can move him? Moreover, as the ruler of a country, what status do you have to make a deal with him? This isn't Lanzhuang, where identity and background are not important. Moreover, don't forget your status. If the Jiang kingdom takes you down in one fell swoop, you won't be able to cry for help. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but admit that Yi Lingfeng's words weren't without reason. However, she had thought about this before. It was just that she had her own plans. I agree with what you said, but I believe that as long as one is human, there will be weaknesses. There will be things that one wants to pursue, unless one is a monk. The 4 elements are empty and have no desires. A person standing at the top of power isn't necessarily omnipotent. He definitely has things that he can't do. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Qingyan's words make sense. When Yi Lingfeng heard Xiao Su's words, he immediately disagreed. Xiao Su, be rational. Didn't we give up this method because we considered that it wouldn't work? He didn't agree to let his good friend take risks. Xiao Su didn't express his opinion. Instead, he said in a flat tone, "Let Qingyan continue." When Chu Qingyan saw that the big ice block didn't object, she heaved a sigh of relief and continued. In fact, I have also thought of young Master Yi's concerns. However, we seem to have fallen into a misconception. We always focus on the emperor of the Jiang kingdom, but we ignore the people around him. We can start from the princes and princesses who are doted on by the empress. The imperial palace of the Jiang kingdom is really heavily guarded. If we steal the ice crystal flower, I'm afraid that we will lose our men inside. I'm also afraid that we will alert the enemy and end up with nothing. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Lingfeng fell silent. At this moment, he felt that Chu Qingyan's words were very reasonable. They were indeed focusing on the emperor of the Jiang kingdom. Xiao Su's gaze landed on Chu Qingyan, and there was a hint of admiration in his eyes. This little fellow was getting smarter and smarter. So, Your Highness, young Master Yi, we still have to continue exploring the imperial palace. However, at the same time, we have to find useful information. If there is a chance to exchange with the emperor of the Jiang kingdom, it would be best. We can work on both sides. After all, there is not much time left for the snake's kiss poison. Chu Qingyan looked into Xiao Su's eyes and said seriously. Yi Lingfeng didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked Xiao Su, "What do you think?" Xiao Su pondered for a moment before saying, "If it weren't for the circumstances, I wouldn't be willing to steal from others. If there is a chance for both sides to reach a deal willingly, I think it would be better." Yi Lingfeng nodded. He looked at Chu Qingyan with some seriousness. "Miss Chu, you are right. We can work on both sides. I will ask people to pay more attention to the news about the imperial palace in the next 2 days, and see if there is anything useful." Chu Qingyan smiled with curved eyes. "Thank you, young Master Yi. We are family. You don't have to be so polite." Yi Lingfeng waved his hand with a leisurely expression. Then he remembered something. Because there will be an imperial banquet in 7 days, the head steward of the imperial household department sent someone to my family's cloth shop. He said that we should choose some good cloth to send to the imperial palace, and let the harem choose. I originally wanted Turin to send someone to dress up and go in. Unfortunately, the imperial palace has a rule that only women can deliver goods. This is the first time I have heard of such a rule. However, we can't disobey it. We missed a good opportunity. I'm afraid that the imperial palace is on guard because of the previous assassination, Chu Qingyan guessed. Then she said to Xiao Su, "Are there no women in the Xiao cavalry?" "There are, but they don't bring them with them. It's too late to move them now. Xiao Su's expression darkened. Chu Qingyan felt that this was a rare opportunity. If she could enter the harem, she might be able to obtain some information. She suddenly raised her hand. Before she finished speaking, Xiao Su saw through her thoughts. He didn't hesitate at all. Not allowed. Chapter 456. I haven't even said anything. What are you not allowing? Chu Qingyan argued unhappily. Xiao Su looked at her coldly. You want to pretend to be a Yi family member to deliver the goods? I won't allow that. I promise I won't. I won't do anything rash. I just want to take the opportunity to go in and take a look. Maybe I can get some information. Chu Qingyan raised her uninjured hand and swore to the heavens. This was a rare opportunity. Although they still had almost a month, time was the last thing they needed. The ice crystal flower was right in front of them, but they couldn't get it no matter what. The itch in her heart was unbearable. No matter what, she had to take the initiative for once. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Yi Lingfeng interrupted. Brother Xiao, I think Miss Chu's suggestion is quite good. Maybe she really will get something. Xiao Su looked at him coldly. You're going along with her nonsense too? Yi Lingfeng couldn't help but laugh. I know you're worried about Miss Chu's safety, but you have to believe in her abilities. She was able to bring back 2 important pieces of information from the Blue Manor. This is enough to prove her abilities. Why can't you trust her? Besides, we have our Yi family members around. They will constantly remind her to make sure she doesn't make any mistakes. Xiao Su hesitated. Chu Qingyan, who saw his hesitation, immediately tugged at his sleeve and begged. Big Ice Block, didn't you say that I have to discuss everything with you? Look at how you reject everything I discuss with you. How am I supposed to talk to you in the future? Xiao Su remembered what he promised her the night before and sighed. I'm just worried that you're not familiar with the palace's rules, and will make mistakes easily. Don't worry, I'll learn the Jiang Kingdom's palace rules in the next 2 days. I'll try my best to be obedient and not make a single mistake. Chu Qingyan knew that he had already agreed, so she decided to strike while the iron was hot. Once I enter the palace, I will obediently follow behind the Yi clan's servants, just like this. She made a gesture of holding a piece of cloth in her hands, then continued walking without looking sideways. Yi Lingfeng, who was at the side, was amused by her actions. Hey brother Xiao, this clown of yours can fight monsters and kill enemies, but she can also play dumb. She's really too interesting. Look at her silly appearance. Who would pay attention to her when she enters the palace? Chu Qingyan immediately raised her eyebrows when she heard the words that sounded both like praise and derision. I'm naturally cute when I stay in the depths of the forest. It's different from being silly, okay? Don't simply use words. She had only pretended to be a 10-year-old girl who was trembling in fear when entering the palace, but she had been laughed at like this. Didn't they say that he had a glib tongue and respected girls the most? She seriously doubted that such a person would become the object of pursuit of all the young women in Jiang country. However, it was also because of Yi Lingfeng's jesting from the side that Xiao Su let her pass after careful consideration. Your injuries haven't healed yet. You can only enter the palace when your injuries have healed. Chu Qingyan hurriedly nodded. As you wish. Her injuries weren't deep to begin with, and they had already begun to scab. She would be able to move around the next day, so she readily agreed. I will send someone into the palace tomorrow. When the time comes, I will send someone to inform Miss Chu. Yi Lingfeng took his leave after this matter was settled. Although he wasn't in charge, as the young master, he had to oversee the Imperial Household Department's large purchase of cloth this time. After Yi Lingfeng left, Chu Qingyan was all smiles as she leaned on Xiao Su's desk, resting her chin on her hands. Her gaze followed his movements as he wrote, and her lips curved into a smile from time to time. If you have something to say, just say it. Xiao Su paused and glanced at her. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. Big Ice Cube, how did you know that I had something to say? Xiao Su curved his lips. Her mood was written all over her face, so it was difficult for him to turn a blind eye to it. Seeing that he only glanced at her before continuing to write, Chu Qingyan wasn't annoyed. She said with a cheerful smile. Big Ice Cube, I am very happy that you will let me enter the palace. You did what you promised me the day before yesterday. Sure enough, I have something to discuss with you. It's not bad. When she was happy, her words didn't make sense. Xiao shook his head. You are too inexperienced. You must be very careful when you enter the palace. Chu Qingyan nodded. I know to be careful with my words and actions. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. The less you say, the less mistakes you make. It's good that you don't say anything. I think that you are still a fool even if you stay in the depths. Xiao put down his brush and left the study with his hands behind his back. Chu Qingyan's good mood immediately turned gloomy. Who said that I am a fool? I am very smart. It was a pity that he had already walked far away. He could no longer hear her roar. Perhaps he heard it. Otherwise, where did that smile on his lips come from? However, Chu Qingyan, who was watching his back, didn't have the chance to see it. The little fellow still needed to gain experience. This time, he would treat it as her experience. Xiao's eyes flashed with anticipation. The little fellow would always surprise him. He hoped that she wouldn't disappoint him. Chu Qingyan stomped her feet and gnashed her teeth at his back. Then, she looked at the empty study room, and was no longer in the mood to read. She should have been recuperating in her room, but she moved here because she wanted to accompany the ice cube. Now that he wasn't here, she couldn't stay any longer. Thus, she also left the study room. Her mother had recently picked up embroidery again, so she didn't want to disturb her. Her father should be playing with the wood spirit at this time. The fire spirit had gone to Shanghua, and wasn't here. Turin was busy with the ice cube's matters. Yen Luo was researching a way to treat her father's illness. She was too embarrassed to look for her. As for Ethereal, she didn't know what to talk to him about. She didn't know anything about medicinal herbs. In the end, only Du Guqing, who was as idle as her, was left. She walked towards Du Guqing's room. Before she reached her door, she saw Du Guqing's figure standing in the courtyard. She didn't know what she was thinking. Sister Dugu, what are you doing? Chu Qingyan held her injured arm and walked towards her. When Du Guqing turned to look at Chu Qingyan could vaguely see that Du Guqing had not managed to hide her emotions in time. She looked serious and a little sad. This was completely different from the Du Guqing that Chu Qingyan had seen before. Chu Qingyan could not help but be a little stunned. However, Du Guqing had already recovered and greeted her with a smile. Why are you suddenly looking for me? What's so fun about it? Chu Qingyan thought that maybe her eyes were playing tricks on her. She walked over slowly. Can't I look for you if there's nothing? Du Guqing shrugged and spread her hands. You don't know that because of your injury, your ice cube put a ban on me. He said that I can't take you out at will before your injury is healed. You see, you've dragged me down and caused me to be unable to go out now. I'm afraid that people will misunderstand and say that I'm going to do something bad with you again. Chu Qingyan smiled embarrassedly. It's my fault that I've dragged you down. Don't take it to heart. Du Guqing smiled magnanimously. It's nothing. Anyway, I can still look for Ling Feng if I have nothing to do in the residence. Oh right, I noticed that there are a lot of guards in your residence. Where did they go? They went to Shang country. They should be back in 2 days. Sister Dugu, what's wrong? Chu Qingyan saw the slight change in her expression and couldn't help but ask in confusion. No, nothing. The wind is a little strong. She was just casually asking, but when she heard these two familiar words, she felt a little complicated. Chapter 457. Du Guqing's strange behavior did not attract Chu Qingyan's attention. Instead, she changed the topic to the palace. This piqued Du Guqing's interest, and she insisted on going with her no matter what. Coincidentally, Ling Feng was passing by with a group of people. Du Guqing immediately went up to him and pestered him to enter the palace with Chu Qingyan. Ling Feng was having a headache. Did these two people think that they were going to the palace for fun? But on second thought, although Du Guqing was boisterous, she was quite reassuring. Hence, Ling Feng agreed. Chu Qingyan looked at Du Guqing, who was cheering after Ling Feng left. She muttered in her heart. Compared to before, she felt that Ling Feng was much more lenient towards Du Guqing. Why did the two of them suddenly become so close? The day of the palace visit arrived as promised. Chu Qingyan and Du Guqing changed into the Yi family's maidservant's clothes and followed the Yi family's housekeeper out. Mr. Chu, Cheng Yanluo and the rest, who had heard the news, gathered around them. Kai, this is the itching powder I made over the past 2 days. Carry it with you for self-defense. If bad guys come, sprinkle it all over them. I guarantee that they'll scratch their heads until they bleed. Mr. Chu stuffed the packet of medicine into his daughter's hands. Father, have you tested this medicine before? Chu Qingyan looked at the medicine bag in her hand. There seemed to be some sand seeping out from the corners of the bag. She seriously suspected that the bag was filled with sand. Mr. Chu nodded proudly. Yes, I sprinkled it on Little Black and I don't know where it is now. I'm guessing that it must have gone to scratch its itch. Little Black was the Yi family's watchdog. It was said that it had been tormented by her father for the past 2 days, and did not dare to come out. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame, and hid the packet of medicine in her sleeve. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo walked over and handed a bottle to Chu Qingyan. This is mystifying bamboo incense. Once it touches someone, they will pass out. You can use it to protect yourself if you're in danger. Chu Qingyan accepted the bottle gratefully. At this moment, Turin walked over. He did not give her medicine, but a small bamboo tube. If you're in danger, light this and we will rush over to save you. Chu Qingyan held the tube in her hand. She suddenly felt that she was not going to the palace to gather information, but to die. She could not help but recall a line from a poem. The wind blew and the water turned. Chu Qingyan felt. Little Qingyan, you are so lucky. So many people care about you. Du Guqing smiled enviously. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and said, Didn't you have a bottle of medicine just now as well? Isn't it all thanks to you? Du Guqing smiled. All right, I hope these things don't come in handy. Otherwise, we'll really be caught as assassins. Chu Qingyan agreed that it was better to be careful with her words and actions. When Chu Qingyan and Du Guqing left the courtyard, Yi Lingfeng stood in the corridor and glanced at the person beside him. If you're worried, why don't you send her off? I've already decided to let her fly. There's no need for that. When a baby eagle learns to fly, the old eagle will not accompany it. It will only learn to fly from afar. Without the old eagle's support, the eagle will learn to fly quickly. What happened today would happen a second time. He was not an indecisive person, so he was a man of his word. Even if he was filled with worry, he would only watch quietly from behind as she learned to walk. No wonder you could nurture such a group of elites like the fierce cavalry. No wonder your Fuhuang is so wary of you. Yi Lingfeng looked in the direction of the Xishuan and sighed. You have the ability to accomplish great things. Unfortunately, you don't have the heart to accomplish great things. But it's good this way. That kind of scheming life is not for people. Xiao Su's expression was light. Since he had let it go, there was no need to be so emotional. At this time, Chu Qingyan and Du Guqing had already reached the palace gates. After layers of inspection and interrogation, they successfully entered the palace. The palace of the Jiang Kingdom was different from the other palaces she had seen. Its palace walls were higher than ordinary palaces. To a certain extent, it could prevent people from attacking from the outside. Chu Qingyan inadvertently sized up the palace walls. She found that at a certain height, there would be a small window that could allow one person to enter. She guessed that when the palace was surrounded by enemies, the people inside could use this window to shoot arrows. It could be said that this was a good barrier that was easy to defend but hard to attack. Now that it was peacetime, those small windows had been welded with iron pillars. No one could enter. On the palace walls, there was a guard every 3 steps. No wonder Turin said that it would be difficult to sneak into the palace at night. The problem should be here. Chu Qingyan retracted her gaze and followed closely behind the steward of the Yi family without looking sideways. Beside her, Du Guqing looked around with a judgmental gaze. Chu Qingyan felt that it was strange. If it was a normal woman entering the palace for the first time, shouldn't she be filled with amazement? Why didn't she see curiosity in Du Guqing, but comparison and pickiness in her eyes? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh. The women she met along the way were all very interesting. At least they were compatible with her, such as Yanluo and Du Guqing. They walked along a very long palace path. On both sides of the path were vermilion walls. The glazed tiles on the palace walls overlapped like the wings of a bird, full of layers. Because the people inside urged them to hurry, they didn't dare to delay. When they reached the corner of a hall, a palace maid and a eunuch stood there to receive them. They said that they didn't need to go to the imperial household department and could go directly to the Qianyu palace. The steward of the Yi family was surprised. "Aren't we going to Eunuch Su to deliver the goods?" The palace maid replied. Today Eunuch Su happened to mention to the empress that the Yi family was purchasing goods. The empress said that she wanted to see the cloth in advance. The steward of the Yi family didn't ask any more questions. He immediately agreed and followed the two with his men. Chu Qingyan didn't expect the journey to be so smooth. She wanted to go to the imperial household department to find out more information, but she didn't expect to go to the empress's palace. She and Duguqing exchanged glances and nodded secretly. They lowered their heads and hurried to follow. After going around in circles, Chu Qingyan almost fainted. When a magnificent palace came into view, Chu Qingyan knew that they had arrived at their destination. Just as the group was about to step onto the white jade steps, they heard the palace maid and eunuch bow. "Greetings, Princess Ning." "Greetings, Princess Ning." Chu Qingyan and Duguqing stood at the back. They didn't have time to see the people in front of them, so they knelt down with the rest. At this moment, a voice that Chu Qingyan was familiar with sounded from the front. "You may all rise." Chu Qingyan's expression changed. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Wasn't it? Duguqing saw Chu Qingyan's expression and immediately pulled her up. "This young lady, please don't make any mistakes at this time." Chapter 458. With Duguqing's reminder, Chu Qingyan quickly came to her senses and stood still with her head slightly lowered. Although that voice sounded very much like the blue-clothed woman who had confronted her at the auction, it had nothing to do with her. She had a heavy responsibility on her shoulders, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. "What are you doing?" The person in front, who was called Princess Ning, asked. "Princess Ning, the Empress wants to see the new fabric. We are going to send it to her." The palace maid immediately replied respectfully. "Well, you can go. I won't delay your work." Princess Ning waved her hand and let them go. The group of people continued to move forward. "Wait," Princess Ning suddenly said. The person holding the blue fabric at the back stopped. Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat, but she still stopped without changing her expression. She lowered her head slightly and raised the fabric in her hand slightly. That day in the blue manor, both of them were masked, so their faces couldn't be seen. Chu Qingyan believed that as long as she disguised well, she wouldn't be recognized today. The gentle footsteps came closer, and she reached out to touch the fabric in her hand. "The color of the fabric is good. Send some bolts to my house tomorrow. I want to have a look." Chu Qingyan relaxed a lot when she heard that she was just looking at the fabric. She looked at the person standing beside her through the fabric. She was wearing a blue pomegranate skirt with a cloak of the same color. The hem of the skirt was embroidered with blue impatiens. Her figure was slender and delicate, and she wore a jade bracelet on her wrist. Her long black hair was combed into a spirit snake bun, black and shiny. A golden cloud hairpin was inserted in her hair, which made her look graceful and charming. Chu Qingyan felt that she couldn't be mistaken about her voice, figure, and walking posture. If Chu Qingyan hadn't seen her fierce and arrogant at the auction, she would have been deceived by her gentle and virtuous appearance. Although Princess Ning had a smile on her face, her almond-shaped eyes didn't show any trace of happiness. It could be seen that such a person was scheming and shrewd. If she was already like this at the age of 14 or 15, what would she be like in a few years? As soon as he finished, the palace maid and steward hurriedly agreed. Thus Chu Qingyan and the others continued their journey. Jiang Yutong took a few steps forward and suddenly frowned. She stopped and looked back. Why did that little girl look so familiar? "Princess." The palace maid beside her saw her stop and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Jiang Yutong regained her senses and continued walking. "Nothing, let's go home." She had just gone to see Jiang Yunyao today. Just as she had expected, Jiang Yuniao did not have many days left to live. Thinking of this, her footsteps became lighter. Chu Qingyan and Duguqing followed the crowd to the entrance of Thousand Feathers Palace, but the Yi clan's people were stopped. An elderly nanny standing at the entrance of the palace glanced at the people standing at the bottom of the steps. After asking for the reason, she said to everyone, "Steward, go in. The rest of you wait outside the palace." Yes. Everyone responded. Duguqing watched as the cloth in her hand was taken by a palace maid. She then turned to whisper to Chu Qingyan, "The palace's security is really too tight. Look." Chu Qingyan followed Duguqing's gaze and saw that the Thousand Feathers Palace was surrounded by palace guards. Their long spears were held upright, looking mighty and unyielding. Chu Qingyan nodded silently and said, "The Thousand Feathers Palace is the Empress' sleeping quarters. It is normal to have more defenses." Duguqing also nodded. The Jiang Kingdom's royal family only has one empress, one princess and two princes. It's not like other countries where there are groups of concubines. So the palace doesn't need so many guards. It's not too much to send 3 layers of guards. Chu Qingyan felt that her words made sense, but she was more concerned about how to understand the situation while standing here. How to get information. Suddenly, Duguqing gave Chu Qingyan a look, and Chu Qingyan immediately understood. She clutched her stomach and squatted down, while Duguqing helped her up with an exaggerated expression. "Little Yan, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" My stomach hurts." Chu Qingyan's voice was full of emotion, as if she couldn't bear it anymore. Duguqing laughed wildly in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it. She said a few words. "What should we do? This is the palace. I want to go to the latrine." Chu Qingyan looked like she was holding it in very hard. Duguqing hurriedly asked the palace maid beside her, "Sister, do you know where the latrine is? My little sister is not feeling well." This palace maid was from Thousand Feathers Palace. She saw Chu Qingyan's painful appearance from the side just now. She didn't think much and said, "Please come with me." Duguqing thanked her repeatedly. She supported Chu Qingyan and followed behind her. At this time, Chu Qingyan and Duguqing secretly high-fived each other. Taking advantage of this walking time, Duguqing chatted with the palace maid. "Sister, you are so kind. If it weren't for you, my little sister would have made a fool of herself." Duguqing sighed. The palace maid was clearly not a dull person. She smiled when she heard this. "It's no trouble. It's just a small matter. Our imperial concubine often teaches us not to do evil because it's small, and not to do good because it's small. Our imperial concubine really has the heart of a bodhisattva. It's a pity that I didn't have the honor to see her when I entered the palace this time. But I feel honored to be so close to the imperial concubine." Duguqing's eyes lit up, as if she really admired her. This palace maid seemed to be a loyal fan of the imperial concubine of Jiang country. After Duguqing expressed her admiration, she also let go of her temper and chatted with Duguqing. Through chatting, they learned that this palace maid was called Jing Lu, who served the imperial concubine of Jiang country. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but admire Duguqing's powerful ability to collect information. She only needed to pretend to be sick on the side, and she could learn some interesting things about the imperial concubine of Jiang country. After a while, they arrived at a secluded place where they could use the toilet. Duguqing and Chu Qingyan looked at each other, and then said to Jing Lu, "Sister, you go ahead with your business. I'll wait for little sister Xiaoyan. We'll go back by ourselves later." As soon as she finished speaking, Jing Lu thought that she still had something to do later. After Duguqing repeatedly assured her that she wouldn't get lost, she left in a hurry. Chu Qingyan came out of the toilet. "She's gone. She's gone. I found that this palace maid is quite simple." Duguqing recovered her usual cunning look and said with a smile, "Maybe the kind of master trains the kind of servant." Chu Qingyan said lightly. There were no concubines in the harem, so there was no competition for favor, and there was no scheming. The imperial concubine of Jiang country only needed to worry about her husband and children, and the people around her didn't have so many thoughts. "You go and find out the news first. I'll stay here. Come back quickly later." Duguqing waved her hand at her. Chu Qingyan nodded. The steward of the E family said that he has to go to the Internal Affairs Department later. I'll come back early. After saying that, she left in a direction. Chapter 459. Before coming here, Chu Qingyan had already memorized the topographic map that Yi Lingfeng had given her. Although it wasn't very accurate, she had more or less memorized the approximate location. Her first target was the Imperial Academy of Medicine. The Imperial Academy of Medicine was a bit far from her position. It wasn't easy to get there, and it was heavily guarded. Fortunately, Chu Qingyan relied on her petite figure and outstanding qinggong to cleverly avoid several groups of patrolling guards. Chu Qingyan exhaled lightly and hid behind a large pillar. Then, she planned to pass through the palace in front of her. Because the imperial family had a small population, most of the palaces here were empty. Because of this, it was convenient for her. As long as she encountered patrolling soldiers, she could climb over the wall and hide in the empty palace. However, after a while, Chu Qingyan encountered a problem. A group of soldiers was heading in her direction. From afar, she saw a few palace servants carrying plates coming towards her from behind the bushes. Chu Qingyan immediately leaped onto a pillar in the corridor. She saw that there was an open window by the wall. Without thinking, she flipped over and entered. After dodging a bullet, Chu Qingyan still didn't dare to relax. She looked around her current situation. She saw a large table in front of her. On the table, there was a variety of fresh vegetables. On the ground there were green baskets of vegetable leaves. Chu Qingyan frowned. Based on her memory, she recalled the terrain in her head. It turned out that she had accidentally entered the imperial kitchen. This should be a room where vegetables were stored. At this time, a sound of footsteps came from afar. Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. She looked around. There were walls on all sides. There was no place to hide. Without thinking, she once again flew onto the beam and sprawled on the beam. At this time, two women dressed like palace maids walked in. They each held an empty basket in their hands. As soon as they entered, they began to pick the vegetables. These vegetables were specially transported from the south. How can we have fresh vegetables here? Palace Maid A said with a smile. Palace Maid B said, "Isn't that so? Our third princess loves to eat this kind of vegetables, so His Majesty has been sending people to collect these vegetables." His Majesty really dotes on the third princess. It's a pity that the third princess hasn't eaten much in the past year. I heard from the servants that the third princess has lost a lot of weight this time. Mayday sighed softly, her tone full of regret. Yes, the imperial kitchen is thinking of ways to make delicious food for the third princess. The imperial doctors are also sending in food treatment prescriptions one after another, but they are of no use to the third princess. Palace Maid B shook her head, her tone also regretful. Chu Qingyan, who was lying on the roof, was thinking about how to get away, but she didn't expect to hear such news. She frowned and thought, "What's wrong with this third princess?" Sick. This was the first time she had heard about Jiang Yuniao apart from the gossip among the people. She had always had a good impression of Jiang Yuniao. Now she was a little curious. Unfortunately, after the two palace maids finished picking the vegetables, they left with their baskets. Although Chu Qingyan had doubts in her heart, she didn't dare to stay for long, for fear that someone would come in later. Moreover, she couldn't let Du Guqing wait for too long. Therefore, she looked around and flew out of the room, quickly heading for the imperial hospital. Chu Qingyan was very glad. When she first started learning martial arts, the earth spirit had first taught her qinggong and concealment techniques. She would be able to escape and hide in times of danger, and that was why she was able to use them now. Because the royal family of the Jiang kingdom had a small population and a large territory, the important places were concentrated. Therefore, Chu Qingyan didn't spend too much time. She quickly passed through the palace, and soon arrived at the imperial hospital. At this time, the imperial hospital was busy. Chu Qingyan found a window and went in. Then she avoided people and found the pharmacy. This time, she and Du Guqing had a clear division of labor. Du Guqing was in charge of collecting information while she was in charge of searching for herbs in the imperial hospital. Although it was their first time entering the palace, and they might not find any useful information, The Yi family had entered the palace more than once to deliver goods. They would be able to enter the palace almost every day, so they weren't in a hurry. Duguqing's main task was to befriend the palace maids and see if she could find any useful information. Her main task was to search for the ice crystal grass. This was what she had told Xiao Su before. Today, her first destination was the Imperial Hospital. The emperor of the Jiang Kingdom had a hobby of searching for rare treasures and rare herbs. However, the ice crystal grass grew in a special environment. Chu Qingyan avoided the medicine cubicles and looked for special storage places or secret rooms. Before coming, she had specially looked for the wood spirit to learn some strange skills. One of them was how to find the hidden mechanism, according to the layout of the room. Although the pharmacy was very big, she had a strong purpose. Therefore, she finished her search very quickly and found nothing. Chu Qingyan thought, could it be that the Imperial Hospital didn't only have this pharmacy? However, the herbs here were also very precious and rarely seen in the market. It was obvious that there was no other pharmacy. Chu Qingyan frowned and prepared to leave. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside the door. There was also the sound of people talking. She couldn't escape now, so she used the same trick and flew up the beam. Once she was on the beam, people came in. Leading them were two men in court attire. One was old and the other was middle-aged. Behind them were two men who looked like eunuchs. Chu Qingyan guessed that the only person who could appear here in court attire was the imperial physician. Lord Zhang, how should we administer the medicine this time? The middle-aged imperial physician looked very distressed and asked the old imperial physician in a low voice. The elderly imperial physician stroked his beard with a worried expression. The third princess's illness is something I've never heard of or seen before. Logically speaking, if it was a common typhoid fever, she would have been cured last year. Why has it been delayed again and again until now? The middle-aged imperial physician nodded after hearing this. The symptoms are that she has caught a cold, causing her to cough incessantly. The prescription we prescribed to stop the cough and moisten the lungs has been ineffective. After taking her pulse carefully, we can't find any other cause. It's really strange. The old imperial physician shook his head and said regretfully, Third princess is gentle and kind, but she suffered from this illness. Sigh. I will leave the palace in early spring next year and return to my hometown. I really hope that before I leave, I can see third princess healthy again. Otherwise, I don't dare to tell outsiders that I used to be an imperial physician. The middle-aged imperial physician patted the old imperial physician's shoulder. Lord Zhang, you don't need to blame yourself. Third princess's illness is really strange. You have already delayed your retirement for nearly a year for third princess. You have already done your duty. Chu Qingyan didn't listen to what the two of them said next. She raised her eyebrows. What illness did third princess have? Why did she hear the most from the imperial kitchen to the imperial hospital? Could this be a breakthrough? Chu Qingyan thought to herself that she should have someone investigate carefully when she returned. Chapter 460. The Imperial Academy of Medicine found nothing. Chu Qingyan followed the route she came from and quickly went back. When she was about to reach the place where she parted with Duguqing, Chu Qingyan heard a faint conversation. That little sister of mine must have eaten something bad. She's still squatting there. Hearing Duguqing's voice, Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This reason was true, but at this time, in order to stall for time, she could only do this. Sigh. If it weren't for the recent unrest in the palace, you wouldn't have to enter the palace to deliver things at such a young age. An unfamiliar female voice sounded. It sounded like she was older than Duguqing. Chu Qingyan didn't listen carefully. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, she flipped back to the latrine. Then she straightened her sleeves, held her stomach and slowly walked out. Elder sister Qing, I feel terrible. She walked out weakly with the support of the wall, looking completely exhausted. Duguqing had already heard the commotion inside. She hurried forward to support Chu Qingyan, and she couldn't help but say, I told you not to be greedy. Look at you now. Elder sister Qing, don't talk about me. I don't even have the energy. Chu Qingyan continued to say weakly. Duguqing reached out to secretly pinch her waist, and then said to the palace maid beside her, "Then little sister will leave first. Perhaps our steward is already looking for us sisters." Chu Qingyan followed her line of sight, and saw a palace maid dressed in lotus leaf color standing in front. Chu Qingyan nodded and smiled at her. That palace maid said, "Go quickly. Otherwise, it won't be good if the higher-ups don't punish you." Du Guqing nodded and supported Chu Qingyan to leave. After walking for a distance, Chu Qingyan straightened her back and winked at Du Guqing. She said with a smile, "Elder sister Dugu, I didn't expect your social skills to be so good. You chatted with another person in such a short time." Du Guqing said disdainfully, "Do you know how many people passed by when you weren't around to ask? More than 2. That Jing Lu came to inquire twice, and was sent away by me. I can hold back 10,000 men by myself." Chu Qingyan immediately reached out and hugged her arm. "Sister Dugu, you've worked hard. Did you get anything?" Hearing this, Du Guqing poked her forehead and sneered. "I knew you only cared about those 2 herbs. Don't worry, I more or less heard some news, but the walls have ears here. Let's go back and talk about it." Chu Qingyan nodded. "Me too." By the time they arrived at the entrance of the Thousand Feathers Palace, the steward of the Yi clan had yet to come out. Chu Qingyan felt that this woman was really good at choosing fabric. Just like her best friend, every time she entered a clothing store, she would try on the first piece of clothing to the last piece of clothing. She really admired her own endurance. When Jing Lu saw the 2 of them, he nodded slightly. Not long after, the steward of the Yi clan came out, and the palace maids behind him also came out holding the fabric. The mama from earlier walked to the steward's side and said to him, "My imperial concubine really likes the fabric this time. Tomorrow send over a few new designs." Her imperial concubine wants to pick for the crown prince and second prince. You must remember not to make any mistakes. The Yi clan's housekeeper immediately acknowledged the order, and led Chu Qingyan and the others to the internal affairs department. Chu Qingyan originally thought that she could take advantage of the time when the Imperial Household Department was inspecting the fabric to build a good relationship with the people inside, and make her presence known. She did not expect that because of the matter with the Jiang country's empress, the steward of the Imperial Household Department directly accepted all the fabric, and told them to enter the palace tomorrow. Thus, the group left the palace again. Once back at the Yi residence, Chu Qingyan and Du Guqing went straight to the study. When Xiao Su and the rest found out that Chu Qingyan was returning to the residence, they waited in the study. "Miss Chu, Miss Dugu, did you find anything?" Yi Lingfeng sat at one side and spoke first. Chu Qingyan took the tea from Xining and drank it in big gulps. Before she spoke, Du Guqing had already said, "The Jiang country's palace is really big." Cough cough. Chu Qingyan choked before swallowing. Could this Du Guqing not be so funny? What else is there besides big? Yi Lingfeng was already used to her way of speaking, and continued to ask. Du Guqing did not delay and said directly, The palace maids of the Jiang country's empress and the palace maids in the laundry yard heard that the Jiang country's emperor and empress are very loving. Other than working late, His Majesty usually stays in the Qinyu Palace. The empress does not have many hobbies, but she likes to grow flowers and plants. The crown prince and second prince are brothers and are respectful to each other. There has not been any news of discord. Until now, the crown prince and second prince have not taken any concubines, nor do they have any concubines. Chu Qingyan nodded. This is the peace of the imperial harem, which is the guarantee that an emperor can rule the world with peace of mind. The Jiang country's empress likes to grow flowers and plants? Xiao Su caught these words and thought for a while. Yes, I heard that there is a small garden in the Qinyu Palace, where the flowers and plants planted by the Jiang country's empress are placed. I heard that there are peonies, orchids, roses, and flowers of all seasons. Du Guqing added. Chu Qingyan's water spirit's bright big eyes flashed slightly, and she turned to Xiao Su and said, Your Highness, do you think the ice crystal flower is in the Qinyu Palace? Xiao Su lowered his eyebrows and pondered. The conditions for cultivating the ice crystal flower are special, so it should not be in an open-air garden. But if the Jiang country's empress likes flowers and plants, maybe there is an ice cellar in her palace. Duguqing was stunned by Chu Qingyan's "Your Highness." She glanced at the people present without leaving a trace. Could it be that little Qingyan and the others were relatives of the emperor of another country? But this seemed to have little to do with her. She spoke again. "I think the possibility of the ice crystal flower being in the Empress's palace is not high." "What is Miss Duga's opinion?" Xiao Su asked. Duguqing replied, "I learned from Shui Lu, the palace mate of the Jiang country's empress, that the Jiang country's empress is extremely afraid of the cold. In October of this year, the Qinyu palace had already started to burn the earth dragon. And His Majesty of the Jiang country had ordered a few years ago that once winter came, the Qinyu palace must be as warm as spring. So I think that His Majesty of the Jiang country would not allow the Qinyu palace to be built with an ice cellar." "Miss Dugu is right." Yi Lingfeng waved his paper fan and nodded. "I have also heard of this matter. It should be that the Jiang country's empress caught a cold when she gave birth to the third princess, which caused the illness to take root. Until now she is still afraid of the cold." Chu Qingyan nodded and said, "I see. In that case, the Thousand Feathers Palace can be ruled out. The Imperial Physician Court can also be ruled out. I went to the Imperial Physician Court and searched everywhere, but I could not find a place to place the ice crystal flower." "Don't worry, now we can rule out 2 palaces," Xiao Su said lightly. "They did very well the first time without special training. No matter what they did it step by step." Chu Qingyan smiled sweetly at him, and then said seriously, "But I heard of very strange news in the Imperial Kitchen and the Imperial Hospital." Chapter 461. What news? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and stared at her. Chu Qingyan immediately repeated the conversation she had overheard in the Imperial Hospital and the Imperial Kitchen. "I overheard 2 palace maids in the Imperial Kitchen saying that the third princess had a poor appetite and had lost a lot of weight over the past year. In the Imperial Hospital, I heard that the third princess had been suffering from a cold for more than a year and had not shown any signs of improvement. The imperial physicians were helpless. I found it very strange that the third princess had not shown up for more than a year. Was it because she was sick? But if it was really just a cold, why did it drag on for so long? The imperial physicians in the imperial hospital shouldn't be the kind of people who just take a salary and do nothing." Chu Qingyan expressed her opinion, but she was very puzzled. When Yi Lingfeng heard this, he seemed to recall something. "After hearing Miss Chu's words, I remembered something. Last year, not long after the third princess's annulment, His Majesty the Shishuan ordered people to announce to the world that they were looking for famous physicians. At that time, I remember that many people entered the palace with the announcement, but those physicians went in and out of the palace. Someone asked them what they were doing in the palace, but they kept their mouths shut. There were too many people who returned empty-handed, so there was no news after that. No one knew if the third princess had been cured or not. Then I thought about this matter. Was the search for famous physicians because of the third princess's illness? I think it's possible." Ethereal chimed in. "Normally, typhoid can be cured in half a month to a month. For it to drag on until now, it shouldn't be as simple as typhoid. Even if it developed into tuberculosis, it would be impossible for her to live for so long. The third princess is still young, so the possibility of her contracting tuberculosis is not high." Cheng Yanluo continued her analysis. "Your Highness, what do you think?" Chu Qingyan turned to ask after hearing this. Xiao Su frowned. "There are 2 possibilities. First, the third princess's illness was misdiagnosed. Second, someone wants to murder her." Having been involved in the intrigue of the Shishuan, Xiao Su was more sensitive than the average person to sniff out things that could not be seen with the naked eye. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. "Don't we have Sister Yanluo and Ethereal? If we can cure the third princess's illness, can we take the opportunity to exchange the ice crystal grass with the emperor of the Jiang kingdom?" As soon as she finished speaking, Cheng Yanluo's large hand covered her head. "Little girl, don't think of us as the living Huatua. Didn't young Master Yi say that many doctors have entered the palace after the imperial notice was posted? There must be some among them who are quite capable. If they can't cure this, I think it's very difficult." I don't want my reputation to be ruined in the Jiang kingdom. Chu Qingyan giggled and winked at her. Sister Yen Luo, you're so powerful that even the snake's kiss poison was a piece of cake for you. Perhaps the third princess's illness won't be a problem for you? Don't flatter me. It's hard to say if you haven't seen the patient. Cheng Yanluo pinched her cheeks and snorted. At this moment, Xiao Su said coldly, the third princess's illness is just like what Qing Yan said. It's a breakthrough. Ling Feng, go and check on the doctors who entered the palace back then, and see if you can find out anything from them. Ling Feng nodded and said leisurely, don't worry. Although it's been so long as she's still in the city, I'll help you find her. If we can find out her symptoms, we might be able to analyze it, Ethereal said. Chu Qingyan thought for a moment and said, the third princess has been ill for so long, but there hasn't been any news outside the palace. It's obvious that they don't want anyone to know. Tomorrow, we still have to go to the palace to deliver the cloth. I'll see if I can find out anything about the third princess. All right. Xiao Su was relieved to see her in high spirits. At this moment, Du Guqing sighed. The third princess is really unlucky. She fell ill not long after the engagement was annulled. She's really traumatized both physically and mentally. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of Tang Qingchang, the man whose engagement was annulled by Jiang Yunyao. She had only caught a glimpse of him in the restaurant that day. She felt that he was dignified and decent. However, one could never judge a book by its cover. His character was unknown. Therefore, she said to Turin, if you have the time, keep an eye on Tang Qingchang, the second son of the Tang family. Although I don't know about his entanglement with the third princess, I think it's not a big deal to investigate him from many angles. Turin nodded and said, I'll ask people to pay more attention to the Tang family. Hearing Chu Qingyan's words, Du Guqing couldn't help asking, Little Qingyan, do you suspect that Tang Qingchang was humiliated by the annulment of the engagement and became a laughingstock? Is that why he tried to murder the third princess? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. She admired Du Guqing's imagination. I didn't say that. It's just that we don't have enough clues now, so I want to dig up some useful information. It's not impossible that love turned into hatred. I think Tang Qingchang can also be included in the list of suspects. Cheng Yanluo touched her chin and voted for Du Guqing. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but twitch the corner of her eyes. They didn't even know what was going on with the third princess's illness, but they had already started to suspect someone. It seemed that women were really talented at gossiping. They were self-taught and could even justify themselves. Before long, the meeting was over. Du Guqing walked out of the study and stopped Yi Lingfeng in front of her. When he turned around, she had already jumped in front of him. She smiled and said, Brother Lingfeng, are you free this afternoon? I heard that Zhenbao Pavilion has a new batch of goods. Do you want to go take a look? Yi Lingfeng took a step back in shock at her sudden appearance. Du Guqing was always so flustered. He steadied himself and looked at her. In order to disguise herself as a servant of the Yi family, she had changed from her rose-colored clothes to a light blue servant's outfit. Her long hair was tied into 2 buns, adorned with a few pearls and no other accessories. Even so, her simple outfit was still as beautiful as an immortal's, with a natural adornment that made her look naturally adorable. His gaze flickered slightly. He had to admit that he had been entranced for a moment. This feeling was very unfamiliar. Unlike the feeling he had in the past when he admired beauties as if they were flowers. He immediately reined in his thoughts. Under her unwavering gaze, he lowered his eyebrows and smiled. I've been very busy recently. If Miss Dugu wants to go, you can bring a few servant girls along. Du Guqing clearly felt the momentary absent-mindedness in his eyes just now, but before she could be happy, he had already regained that alienation. It was just the right amount of politeness, and Du Guqing's curved lips immediately flattened. You. Just as she spoke, Yi Lingfeng smiled and said, I have something to do, so I'll take my leave. Miss Dugu, you can call the servants if you need anything. Without waiting for her response, he turned and left. Du Guqing watched him leave and her lips curved into a self-deprecating smile. What should she do? She still couldn't move him. Chapter 462. Everyone left. Only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were left in the study. Chu Qingyan got up and approached the desk. She raised her fair face and looked at him with her dark eyes. Big Ice Cube, I went to the imperial palace of the Jiang Kingdom today and found something. What is it? Usually when a little girl talked like this, she must have found something interesting. He put his hands on the desk and waited for her to speak. Chu Qingyan supported her chin with one hand and said while thinking, when I secretly investigated today, I found that although the imperial palace of the Jiang Kingdom covers a large area, it also has many idol palaces. There is only one empress, no concubines, and only a few princes and princesses. It is not like other countries, where there are 3,000 beauties in the harem and many people are fighting for favor. If every country can be as strict as the emperor of the Jiang Kingdom, corruption will not happen so fast, Xiao Su said without denying it. Along the way, the prosperity of the Jiang Kingdom was something that Xixian and the Junlan Kingdom could not compare to. It was mainly due to the way the emperor of the Jiang Kingdom governed the country. Generally, a large part of the reason why a country was stagnant or could not move forward was because of the imperial harem. The imperial concubines in the imperial harem basically represented super powerful parties. They restrained each other in the imperial harem, which was equivalent to the parties in the imperial court restraining disputes. The royal family of the Jiang Kingdom was simple, so no one rebelled. Chu Qingyan understood the meaning of Xiao Su's words. She nodded and said jokingly, in fact, there is another advantage for the emperor of the Jiang Kingdom to do this, which is to save money. If the population is small, the expenses will be small. If the expenses are small, the national treasury will be full. If the national treasury is full, the people will live a better life. If the people live a better life, Guotai will be safe. Xiao Su smiled and praised her, which was rare for him. What you said is very appropriate. Chu Qingyan smiled proudly, and then the smile on her face faded. Big Ice Cube, how good would it be if everyone in the world was monogamous? There would be no struggle for power in the imperial harem, and Guotai would be safe. There would be no intrigue in the imperial harem, and everything would be prosperous in the imperial harem. Xiao Su smiled faintly. You're thinking too simply. The rule passed down by our ancestors is to have more children and more blessings. Women are born to depend on men to live. Their existence is to have more children. In the eyes of most men, they're just tools to carry on the family line. Their life and death are not worth mentioning. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's expression changed. She placed both her hands on the table and said unhappily, women are not your tools for reproduction. They are also not lowly beings that you can toy with. Don't look down on people like this. Without women, the human race would have been destroyed. Big Ice Cube, I thought you were different. I didn't expect you to think the same. I was wrong about you. Xiao Su looked at her angrily and criticized her. When she finished, Xiao Su said slowly, I was talking about most men. I didn't say that I think the same. Little fellow, even if you want to complain about injustice, you shouldn't accuse me because I am a man. Chu Qingyan blinked. The Big Ice Cube didn't seem to admit it just now. He was just stating his point of view. Could it be that she had really wronged a good person? But you are the Lord. You have 3 wives and 4 concubines. You will definitely have many sons. Chu Qingyan seemed to have found her footing and started to accuse him again. She didn't remember that she was his future princess consort. Xiao Su looked at her indignant expression and couldn't help but want to laugh. Little fellow, did I say that I have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Chu Qingyan didn't react to his question. I don't think so. You don't have to worry about this. He reached out to pat her head with an enigmatic smile. Chu Qingyan rubbed her head. She was a bit confused. What could she be worried about? But for some reason, when she heard the Big Ice Cube say this, her heart felt inexplicably comfortable. It was as if someone had opened up her conception and governor meridians. Go and change your clothes. Xiao Su stood up and said with a laugh when he saw her dazed expression. Change my clothes for what? Chu Qingyan was stunned. Xiao Su looked at her with slight disdain in his eyes. Do you want to go shopping like this? Of course not. I will be treated as a servant girl. Chu Qingyan said angrily. Only after she finished speaking did she realize that Big Ice Cube was going to take her out for a walk. Xiao Su saw that her first reaction was not to go back to her room to change, but to run to the window and look around. He couldn't help but frown. "What are you doing?" "I'm looking to see if the sun will rise from the west today," Chu Qingyan replied in a serious manner. Xiao Su's eyes twitched. "I'll give you the time it takes to brew a cup of tea." So, the person who had been looking around by the window was gone in an instant. Xiao Su rubbed his forehead. He felt a bit helpless, but a faint warmth floated in the corner of his mouth. During this period of time, the little fellow had been recuperating in her room. She must have been bored out of her wits. In addition, she went to Lan Manor a few days ago and brought back good news. In addition, she went to the Imperial Palace today to inquire about the news. Xiao Su thought that the little fellow had done so many things, so he should reward her once. His hand unconsciously reached into his sleeve. His fingers touched the warm beads, and his heart was peaceful. After leaving the study, Chu Qingyan quickly led Xining, who was outside the door, back to her room. She didn't know why her master was running so fast. Xining was panting behind her. Chu Qingyan urged, "Xining, help me take out the crescent moon phoenix tail dress. I want to wear that out." "Understood," Xining said loudly. So it was going out. No wonder her master was so excited. She immediately went to the wardrobe. While waiting for the clothes, Chu Qingyan calmed down. She thought of her conversation with the ice cube. She couldn't help but imagine. If the Sichuan emperor only married Empress Liang, then would the ice cube not have to endure so much unfair treatment since childhood? Then would the Sichuan dynasty not have so many factions fighting? Would everything be stable and prosperous? But everything was just a hypothesis. The Sichuan emperor married Empress Liang for power. Once a man ascended and held great power, he would take back everything he didn't get before. For example, he would marry his childhood sweetheart Consort Yu. The higher a person stood, the greater their ambition. They would not be satisfied with the status quo. The ancient times were not like the present, where there was democracy and freedom. There were monitoring organizations. In ancient times, the emperor was the sky, and no one dared to go against him. Chu Qingyan shook her head. She couldn't help but feel that she was thinking too much. She was just feeling unfair for the ice cube. But she thought, if the Sichuan emperor only married Empress Liang, then would she not have appeared? Everything was a cycle of cause and effect. It was all destined. She stopped thinking about it. She changed her clothes and walked towards the study. It was rare for the ice cube to invite her out. She couldn't let him wait for too long. If he waited for too long, he would become arrogant and her trip would be ruined. Chapter 463. After meeting up with Xiao Su in the study, Xiao Su brought Turin, while Chu Qingyan brought Xining and Jin Xian. The five of them went out together. After being bored for a few days, Chu Qingyan became lively as soon as she arrived at the downtown area. "Big Ice Cube, I want this one. Big Ice Cube, I want that one. This one, that one is also not bad." Once in the crowd, Chu Qingyan turned into a shopping maniac and bought whatever she saw. Xiao Su followed behind her, and only needed to pay. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow who was shuttling between the vendors like a fish in water. In a trance, he felt that this was the innocent and unaffected look that a 10-year-old child should have. Ever since they left Sichuan, he rarely saw her so childish, and a touch of guilt emerged in his heart. Chu Qingyan didn't really want to buy anything, but she felt that Big Ice Cube was willing to accompany her because he felt that she had worked hard during this period of time, so he wanted to compensate her. In this case, in order to reassure Big Ice Cube, she let loose and became a nouveau riche for once. Look, she had contracted the entire street. It was just a pity that as bodyguards, Turin and Jin Xian were all carrying things that she had bought. When they were tired of shopping, the group found a restaurant to rest. Chu Qingyan looked at the things piled up on the chair with a satisfied look on her face. However, she didn't buy anything expensive. They were all snacks and trinkets that didn't cost much. They were not even as expensive as a dish in this restaurant. "Order whatever you want to eat." Xiao Su saw her drooling at the food on the table next to them, so he coughed lightly and reminded her. He was a little disappointed that she didn't live up to his expectations. Chu Qingyan immediately called for the waiter and ordered all the signature dishes. Then, she eagerly waited for the dishes to be served. Today, she had gone to the palace and was tormented for an entire day. She had used up a lot of her physical strength. In addition, she had gone shopping just now. She was almost half dead. It was said that girls love to go shopping, but she didn't think so. She only felt that going shopping for nothing would kill her. In the tea house opposite the restaurant, a purplish figure could be vaguely seen leaning against the window sill. "Young master, aren't you here to look for Miss Chu? Why aren't you showing yourself?" Xuanqi Zimo looked at the person below with a puzzled expression. Today, his master had received news that Miss Chu had left the manor and had brought him out. However, he had only silently followed along the entire way and had not taken the initiative to approach. This made him very confused. "Didn't you see Xiao beside her? Your master doesn't want to expose himself so early." Higashio Motetsu gave him a sideways glance. He really didn't have good eyesight. Xuanqi Zimo replied, "Master, has Xiao seen you before? How did he recognize you?" "It's better to be safe than sorry. Besides, he knows that the lass has recovered from her injuries. It doesn't matter whether he sees her or not." Higashio Motetsu's gaze fell on the girl who was acting coquettishly towards Xiao. A trace of jealousy appeared in his eyes. The lass had never treated him like this before. Higashio Motetsu was very dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan's differential treatment. At this time, Xuanqi Zimo, who didn't know what his young master was thinking, hesitantly said, "That's right, master. The spies reported that the palace lord flew into a rage at the palace gates because you didn't bid for the ginseng fruit. It caused quite a big commotion." When Higashio Motetsu heard this, he sneered. "That ginseng fruit costs 10,000 taels per bite. This young master can't afford it. Who knows how much money the Moon Palace has spent on that person over the years? Father still hasn't learned his lesson, and actually wants to buy that fruit for her. He's so stubborn. There's no need to pay attention to him." Xuanqi Zimo wanted to say something else, to tell his young master not to be angry with the palace lord. However, when he saw the mocking expression on his master's face, he fell silent. In the Moon Palace, who didn't know that the palace lord and the young palace lord often fell out with each other, or that they were in a cold war? Now that the young palace lord had grown up, she didn't spend much time in the Moon Palace. However, their every move was still closely watched by the entire Moon Palace. Who didn't wish for the palace lord and the young palace lord to reconcile as soon as possible? In the future, the Moon Palace would still have to be handed over to the young palace lord. For the next month, don't tell this young master anything about the old man. What I don't hear won't hurt me," Higashio Motetsu ordered coldly as he reached out to close the window. Yes. The father and son who used to be so close were now strangers. Xuanqi Zimo sighed softly. It really made one sigh. In the restaurant, Xiao raised his head as if he sensed something. In the opposite tea house, the window was already closed, and he couldn't see the people inside. The window beside it was wide open, and they were ordinary people. There was nothing suspicious about them. "Big ice cube. What are you looking at? Do you want to drink some tea?" Chu Qingyan turned to look at the opposite side of the road and saw a tea house. She couldn't help but ask. "No need. Don't look around when you're eating," Xiao said calmly. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders and continued eating her meal. "Big ice cube, I'm starting to miss Huang Yi's cooking. It's already been a few months. I wonder if everything in the manor is still all right?" Chu Qingyan took a sip of soup and sighed. Although she had only been in the capital for half a year and hadn't made many friends, her days in the King of England's manor had been the happiest. There had been good food and big ice cube. Her days had been relaxed and she hadn't had to worry about anything. Perhaps she would never be able to return to those days in this lifetime. Whether or not Big Ice Cube returned to the Sichuan, it would never happen again. The most helpless thing in life was when things remained the same, but people changed. In the future, I'll take you to eat all over Jiangnan. Xiao couldn't help but smile when he saw her scrunched up face, which vividly illustrated what a bun face looked like. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. You'll keep your word? A gentleman's word is as good as a whip. Xiao Su expressed his displeasure at her doubts. Good. Chu Qingyan continued to eat her meal in satisfaction. She found that Big Ice Cube was becoming more and more easy to talk to. It seemed like her ice cube transformation had been very successful. It was a pity that Chu Qingyan could not hear the thoughts of Hualing and the others. Master was only special to the little princess, and was always cold and scorching to them. Gentle and soft? Was it an illusion? Caring about their well-being? Was it an illusion? Considerate? Was it an illusion? They had accompanied their master for so many years, but they couldn't compare to the little princess who had accompanied him for less than a year. They felt like they were failures. How could Chu Qingyan know about Hualing and the others' complaints? If she was lucky enough to hear it, Chu Qingyan would not be outdone. In this world, other than first come, first served, there were 5 other words, which was that the latecomer caught up. The dishes they ordered were all famous in the capital. Chu Qingyan was simply eating her fill. When she was 70 to 80% full, she was prepared to put down her chopsticks and drink some tea to get rid of the grease. But at this time, she heard the waiter's voice. Second young Master Tang, it's been a long time since you came to our store. Do you want to drink or eat? The waiter politely asked. Second young Master Tang? Tang Qingchong. Chu Qingyan's hand holding the teacup stopped, and she turned to look at the voice. Chapter 464. He was dressed in a white robe, his black hair flowing in the wind, one black and one white, making him look upright and serious. A light green belt was wrapped around his waist, and he wore white deerskin boots. His skin was as white as jade, and because of this, his handsome features looked particularly three-dimensional. His lips were red and his teeth were white, but he did not look weak like a jade-faced scholar. Instead, his body was sturdy, and his footsteps were steady and powerful. However, his eyelids were lowered, concealing the expression in his eyes. His expression was very indifferent and emotionless, giving people a feeling that he was not easy to approach. However, Chu Qingyan felt that this person's coldness was deliberate. It was as if he was trying to avoid unnecessary trouble, unlike her big ice cube. That coldness was something that had been accumulated through tens of battles. From the inside out, just one look from him was enough to turn a person from the warm spring to the cold winter, chilling them to the bone. Same as before, a pot of wine and 2 side dishes. Although his voice was low, his pronunciation was perfect, making people feel comfortable listening to him. After Tang Qingchong finished ordering, his gaze swept across the hall, and he found a seat in a corner where he would not be easily disturbed by others. Chu Qingyan could not help but recall that she and Higashio Motetsu had also met him here previously. At that time, he had also asked for a pot of wine, and then poured himself a cup of wine, as if no one else was around. She felt that it was very strange. Why did such an aristocratic family's eldest young master always come here to drink? Moreover, he was alone? Chu Qingyan could not figure it out, so she turned to tell the person beside her. Drinking is either to liven things up or to drown one's sorrows. Which do you think he is? Xiao Su always hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin. Liven things up is definitely impossible. Look at him sitting there, cold and indifferent. He doesn't look happy at all, so he can only drown his sorrows. But as the son of the Prime Minister, is there anything to be sorrowful about? Xiao Su put down his chopsticks, looked at her face full of interest and suggested, "You can ask someone." Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. Big Ice Cube, you always wake me up with your words. After praising him, she called the waiter over and asked him with a confused look on her face. Waiter, do you know why the brother in white sitting over there always drinks alone? I've seen him a few times, and I'm curious about him. As she spoke, she stuffed the money bag handed over by Turin into the waiter's hand. The waiter weighed the money bag and looked happy. He immediately lowered his voice and said, "The man in white is the second legitimate son of the Prime Minister of the Jiang Kingdom. He is the second young Master Tang Qingchong. You should have heard that the third princess broke off the engagement, right?" Chu Qingyan nodded cooperatively. "I've heard of it." The waiter continued. The one who broke off the engagement and became the prince consort is the second young master Tang. There are many different reasons for breaking off the engagement, and ordinary people like us don't know. But after 1 or 2 months, the second young master Tang often came to our restaurant. He would sit there for most of the day with a pot of wine and 2 dishes. In the beginning, we attracted a lot of business for our restaurant. Because second young master Tang is the most handsome man in the imperial capital, many girls specially came to our restaurant to see him. Unfortunately, second young master Tang has always ignored them. His cold appearance scared many girls away. The waiter's words were full of regret, as if he had lost a lot of business. Seeing that he had digressed from the topic, Chu Qingyan immediately stopped him from talking about regret and pulled him back to the topic. Then do you know why the second young master Tang often comes to your restaurant? Could it be that his family doesn't give him enough food and clothes? After the waiter finished sighing, he heard Chu Qingyan's question and immediately waved his hand. Although the second young master Tang is the second son, Prime Minister Tang dotes on him like a treasure. How could he be mistreated? Speaking of the second young master Tang coming to our restaurant for more than a year, I'm not very clear. But some people say that it's because the third princess used to like the treasure pavilion diagonally opposite our restaurant. She often went out of the palace to buy gold and silver jewelry, so the second young master Tang often sat here and waited for the third princess to appear. Treasure pavilion? Chu Qingyan turned her head and looked outside. Indeed, there was a tall and big treasure pavilion near the opposite tea house. Well, I have to go to work. If you need anything, please feel free to call me. The waiter threw the rag over his shoulder and immediately went to greet the new customer. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Tang Qingchang and found that although he was drinking, his eyes were indeed on the opposite side. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but frown. If he really liked her, why didn't he take the initiative to find her? Instead, he waited here for her. What was the use? Master, Tang Qingchang didn't go out a few days ago. I didn't have time to receive the news that he came to the restaurant today. Turin apologized. Well, investigate the reason why Tang Qingchang appeared here. Seeing that the little fellow seemed to be very concerned about this matter, Xiao ordered. Yes, Turin answered. Chu Qingyan ate the rice in her bowl. After he finished his order, she said, Big ice cube, I think the waiter's words may be somewhat true. Tang Qingchang is so strange. Why does he waste time waiting here? Why don't we go directly to Jiang Yinyao and make it clear? I think there's something fishy about the broken engagement back then. Not everyone has the courage to do so. Xiao said indifferently. He glanced at her and pointed at the rice in her bowl. It's not good to get used to leftovers. She had eaten too much just now and couldn't eat anymore. But under the pressure of the big ice cube, she obediently picked up the chopsticks and ate the rice painfully. I think a man must have the courage to face his bleak life and the face that he has left behind. Only then can he not care about trifles and win the beauty back. Oh, Xiao was surprised by her sudden words. He stroked his chin and subconsciously remembered it in his heart. After a long time, when Chu Qingyan was irritated by a certain someone, she was quickly coaxed back. She couldn't help but wonder. You dared to admit your mistake in front of your subordinates. It's not like you. A certain someone replied. A man must have the courage to face his bleak life and the face that he has left behind. Only then can he not care about trifles and win the beauty back. Chu Qingyan felt that these words were very pleasant to hear, and her hair was smoothed out. However, she felt that these words were somewhat familiar, as if she had heard them somewhere before. Unfortunately, before she could think clearly, she was pressed into the red blanket by a certain someone. The red quilt was rolled over and the two lovers' necks were intertwined. It was as beautiful as a painting. The group sat for a while longer and saw Tang Qingchang pay the bill and get up to leave. Tang Qingchang had just walked to the door of the restaurant when a beggar bumped into his leg. The beggar didn't manage to control his strength and fell to the ground. The little beggar grimaced in pain. It was obvious that he had suffered some scratches. Perhaps it was because he saw that the person he bumped into was a well-dressed young master. The little beggar was so scared that he couldn't even speak clearly. I'm sorry. Chu Qingyan saw this scene and was very curious about how Tang Qingchang would deal with it. Chapter 465. They were about to leave, but because Chu Qingyan wanted to watch a good show, Xiao allowed her to leave. Chu Qingyan propped up her chin and looked out the door, wondering how Tang Qingchong would deal with the situation. He was wearing a snow-white brocade robe and his knees had been dirted by the beggar. He looked a little disheveled. Outside the door, Tang Qingchong looked at the beggar who was staring at him in horror. He did not look down at his robe, but walked up to him. The beggar looked at the approaching man, and was so frightened that tears almost fell from his eyes. He put his palms together and begged for mercy. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Please be magnanimous and forgive me." Chu Qingyan saw this shocking scene. Tang Qingchong bent down and reached out to the beggar, then helped him up easily. Before the beggar could react, Tang Qingchong took out a money pouch from his sleeve and placed it in the beggar's broken bowl. Without a word, he left with his hands clasped behind his back. Chu Qingyan's jaw almost dropped. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with admiration when he saw this. "Big ice cube, I think Tang Qingchong is a good person." Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. Just now he didn't care about the stains on his clothes at all. When he reached out to help the little beggar up, he didn't hesitate at all. He didn't care that the little beggar was dirty all over. What's more, he took out the money bag in one breath. Before they could react, he had already left. He was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He was kind and beautiful. Chu Qingyan thought that such a man was rare. She wondered what the third princess would be like. She was looking forward to meeting Jiang Yinyao. Back then, they were the legendary couple in the imperial capital. She was very curious. After paying the money, the group headed back to the Yi residence. Along the way, they stopped and looked at the traffic and did not feel bored. When they returned to the Yi residence, Chu Qingyan distributed the things she bought to everyone, especially the food. Her father, Du Geqing and Cheng Yanluo shared it among themselves. After dinner, Chu Qingyan looked at a map of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace in her room. Then she took out a red pen and drew circles on it. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Xining went to open it. "First Old Master Chu, first Madam Chu." Xining bowed and stepped aside to let them in. When Chu Qingyan heard that it was her father and mother, she immediately stood up to greet them. "Father, mother. Why are you here so late at night? It's too cold. Is there anything you can't say during the day? Dan Yang said she misses you." Mr. Chu was so cold that he rubbed his hands together. Even his nose had turned red from the cold. It was very cold at night in Jiang country. It was much colder than during the day. Chu Qingyan ordered Xining to pass a heater to her father. She then held her mother's hand and helped her warm it up. "Mother, didn't we just have dinner together in the day? Are you missing me already?" Chu Qingyan's mother smiled. "There were too many people during the day. You were also busy. I didn't want to disturb you." "Mother, what are you saying? If you have something to say, just say it. What are you talking about?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but chide her. She acted like a little girl. Chu Qingyan's mother looked at her daughter, who was acting coquettishly in front of her. She felt that this was how a little girl should behave. She had seen her daughter behave properly during the day. When she talked with the King of England and the others, she acted like a little adult. As a mother, she was both happy and worried. She was happy that her daughter was smart and quick-witted. She was worried that her daughter was shouldering a responsibility that was beyond her age at such a young age. Her heart ached. "I heard that you're going to the palace tomorrow?" Chu Qingyan's mother asked worriedly. Chu Qingyan remembered that she didn't tell her mother that she was going to the palace. Someone must have let it slip. Judging from her mother's expression, she must be worried about her, and came to look for her in the middle of the night. She hurriedly comforted her. "Mother, this is my second time entering the palace as a servant of the Yi family. It won't be a problem. With the Yi family steward around, nothing will happen to me." Chu Qingyan's mother used to be a daughter of a wealthy family in the Sichuan capital. Before she got married, she often attended the palace's talent banquets. There were many rules in the palace. She knew this very well. "Kai, it's not that mother likes to nag. It's just that you're still young. I don't trust you to do these things. His Royal Highness has many capable people under him. Can they do it instead?" However, no matter how smart and mature her daughter was, She was still a child in her mother's eyes. A mother would worry about a child traveling thousands of miles, not to mention going to the most dangerous place in the country. Chu Qingyan knew that her mother didn't want her to take the risk. She told her mother about the palace's rules and why His Highness's people couldn't be used. She then explained her advantages. Mother, I've learned a lot along the way with His Highness. My martial arts aren't weak and I'm smart. It's time for me to go out and broaden my horizons. Otherwise, everything will just be theory. Mother, father used to be a general. As the saying goes, a general will never have a dog son. You should trust me. That's right. Never have a dog son. Kai, your father's tiger son. Chu Qingyan's father interjected as he warmed his hands. Chu Qingyan's mother sighed. But Kai, you're a girl. You're different from boys. How can you be expected of a boy? Mother, how can a girl be inferior to a boy? We girls can also make a name for ourselves. Chu Qingyan pretended to be displeased. Chu Qingyan's father nodded his head vigorously. Kai can make a name for herself. Kai is better than a man. She's just a little bit worse than a son-in-law. Chu Qingyan made a face at her father. She had had enough of him praising the ice cube every time. Chu Qingyan's mother was at a loss for words. In the end, Chu Qingyan's mother gave in. She patted her daughter's hand and exhorted. No matter what happens, you have to protect yourself. If there's any danger, you have to run away immediately. Chu Qingyan was amused by her mother's words. When she sent her mother out, Chu Qingyan reached out and hugged the person she saw the moment she opened her eyes. She was also the person who gave her the most warmth. She comforted. Mother, Kai is already growing up. You don't have to worry. Trust me. Chu Qingyan's mother was a little stunned by her daughter's sudden hug. But when she heard her daughter's words, her eyes shone with deep affection. Mother has always believed that our Kai is the best. When Chu Qingyan's father saw the mother and daughter hugging each other, he opened his arms and moved closer. Me too. After sending her parents off, Chu Qingyan returned to her seat and saw Xining's red eyes. What's wrong? Are you homesick? Chu Qingyan asked with concern. Xining is touched. Master's relationship with your family is very good. It's so good that it makes others envious. Xining rubbed her eyes and said. Because parents always do their best to give the best to their children. The only thing we can do is to do our best to be filial to them when we grow old. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind won't stop. The child wants to be raised, but the parents are no longer around. Don't regret it for life. Chu Qingyan smiled gently and said with a sigh. Master is right. Xining nodded in agreement. Chapter 466. The next day, Chu Qingyan got up early in the morning and prepared to enter the palace. Just as she was washing up, a servant came to report that Duguqing was not feeling well. She had a high fever last night, and only recovered this morning. She could not enter the palace with them. Chu Qingyan was shocked. Duguqing was fine yesterday. How did she fall ill all of a sudden? She wanted to visit Duguqing, but it was already time for the assembly. She could only visit Duguqing after leaving the palace. Without Duguqing, their plan would be ruined. Chu Qingyan felt uneasy as she sat in the Yi family's carriage. It seemed that she could only act according to the situation. When they arrived at the palace gates, the sky was just beginning to brighten. This time, they had to go to the Imperial Household Department first to hand over the cloth that Empress Jiang had requested. Then they would bring the new clothes to Qinyu Palace for Empress Jiang to choose. Without Duguqing's protection, Chu Qingyan decided to follow the crowd in front of everyone. She decided to sneak away on the way to Qinyu Palace. After spending nearly 2 hours in the Imperial Household Department, everyone carried the cloth that Empress Jiang had requested for men, and headed to Qinyu Palace. Chu Qingyan was hugging a roll of navy blue cloth. When she turned a corner, she suddenly hugged her stomach and cried out in pain. The Yi family's steward was Yi Lingfeng's confidant. When they were in the carriage, Chu Qingyan had already told him of her intentions. So when Chu Qingyan repeated her actions, the Yi family's steward said to the eunuch who was leading the way, My little girl doesn't know any better. She's probably having a stomachache. Can you let her go and take care of it first? The eunuch was in a difficult position. The empress has already woken up. We can't delay. Chu Qingyan immediately said. Little Yen knows where the toilet is. Let's go first. Little Yen will be there soon. Is that okay? The little eunuch stared at Chu Qingyan, this little girl. Her face was as fair as jade, and when she frowned, it caused him to feel pity for her. Go. Go to the Thousand Feathers Palace as soon as possible. If not, no one will be able to bear the responsibility if you cause trouble. Chu Qingyan thanked him again and again. Then, holding the cloth, she ran away with a smile on her face. The little eunuch shook his head and said with a smile, Looks like it's really quite urgent. Let's hurry up and not let the empress wait too long. Yes. The group continued onward. Chu Qingyan hugged the cloth and quickly walked forward. This time, her goal was very clear. It was Jiang Yunyao's palace, Yaoyuan Palace. Just by hearing the name of the palace, one could tell how important Jiang Yunyao was to His Majesty. Along the way, Chu Qingyan met people, and said that she was here to deliver the cloth to the empress. However, she got lost and would walk back by herself later. The imperial palace of Jiang country was tight on the outside, but loose on the inside. Most of their energy was focused on guarding the palace. At the first checkpoint, they were strictly interrogated. Therefore, in the inner palace, they were relatively relaxed. Except for the main palaces, such as the Imperial Study, Thousand Feathers Palace, Crown Prince's Palace, the second Prince's Jinyun Palace, and the third Princess Yaoyuan Palace, the other palaces were not very tightly guarded. Chu Qingyan smoothly arrived outside Yaoyuan Palace. She hid on the roof of a small palace in front of her and stared at Yaoyuan Palace. Although it was one of the 5 major palaces in the Imperial Palace, this Yaoyuan Palace did not look as luxurious as its reputation. Its appearance looked very simple, as if it had settled down for hundreds of years. It was not stunning at first glance, but only a little bit of spontaneously arising awe. Chu Qingyan was a little curious. What kind of temperament did Jiang Yunyao have to be able to live in such a palace? Gentle and generous. That was her first impression before she saw her in person. Or maybe she was kind and gentle. When she was lost in thought, she suddenly heard the sound of the closed palace door being opened. She immediately held her breath and saw a few women coming out from behind the door. The woman in the lead seemed to be somewhat familiar. She took a closer look. Wasn't she the Princess Ning that she met yesterday? Why did she see her twice when she entered the palace? Chu Qingyan patted her forehead. Yesterday, she forgot to ask Turin to check the background of this Princess Ning. She could walk freely in the Imperial Palace, so her identity was not bad. Forget it. She would talk about it when she went back today. She was able to spend hundreds of thousands of taels in Lan Manor, so she should not be underestimated. Because she was far away, she did not know what they were talking about. She could only wait for them to leave, and then find an opportunity to sneak into Yaoyuan Palace. At this time, Jiang Yutong was talking to Jiang Yunyao's personal maid, Ruyue. Sister Yao's health has not improved. The weather has been too cold recently. Don't catch a cold. It will be better to put a heater in the room. Ruyue said gratefully. Thank you for reminding me, Princess Ning. I will pay more attention. Thank you for your concern over the past year, and for visiting my master from time to time. Ruyue, don't say that. Sister Yao is my closest sister since childhood. Now she is sick. How can I just sit by and do nothing? I just pity her for being tortured by the disease. She hasn't recovered yet. Every time I see her in pain, it's like a knife stabbing my heart. Jiang Yutong's face was full of grief, as if she had experienced it herself. Hearing this, Ruyue felt grateful again. When Jiang Yutong left Yaoyuan Palace, the sadness on her face disappeared in a blink of an eye. She sneered. Master is stupid, and so are the servants. You are all a group of idiots. How dare you fight with me? You really overestimate yourself. After that, Jiang Yutong left leisurely. Although she didn't know what they were talking about, Chu Qingyan's eyesight had improved since her martial arts improved last time. At first, they were about to cry, but after they left, Princess Ning changed her face in the blink of an eye. She was as malicious as a poisonous scorpion. Chu Qingyan shook her head. She was really one person in front of others and another in private. It was better to stay away from such a person. When Yaoyan Palace was quiet again, Chu Qingyan turned over and landed on the ground. She walked a few steps and wanted to go in from the side door on the other side, because there was a tall tree there. She could sneak into the hall. Unfortunately, she forgot that she was still holding a piece of cloth in her hand, which hindered her action. Because the cloth was too long, if she climbed the tree, her whereabouts would be exposed. At this time, she didn't know whether to throw it or not. Just when she was hesitating, suddenly a cold shout came. "Who is there?" Chu Qingyan's face changed. She was finished. She was discovered. She pursed her lips and made a prompt decision to turn around. Sure enough, there was a group of imperial guards standing behind her. "Little Yen was here to deliver cloth to the Empress today, but I got lost after going to the toilet. I couldn't find the Thousand Feathers Palace anymore, and I ended up here by accident. Lord Official, please take a look." Chu Qingyan immediately gave in, and she looked like a frightened deer with tears in her eyes. Whether you are lost or intentional, you are not allowed to enter Yaoyan Palace without permission. Guards, take her away first. The leader of the Imperial Guards said with a straight face. Chu Qingyan clenched her fists. She didn't expect to kick such a hard stone. What should she do now? If she fell into their hands, she was afraid that her identity would be exposed and it would implicate Big Ice Cube any family. Hold on. A voice that sounded like a sweet rain suddenly came. Chapter 467. This voice seemed to be separated by thousands of layers of clouds, making it difficult to hear clearly. But the crisp sound of the pagoda bell gradually approached. It sounded familiar. A person's face slowly appeared in her mind. A youth in white with a brocade belt, with a compassionate gaze, and a holiness that could only be seen from afar and not touched. She found it hard to believe. Why was he here? As if fate wanted to verify this impossibility. When she turned around, she saw the person who seemed to be walking in the moonlight, with a bright red cinnabar dot on his forehead. Quack? Oh no, Great Master? Chu Qingyan blurted out, but immediately clenched her teeth and corrected herself. Hearing Chu Qingyan's summons, the guard captain was puzzled. Could it be that the two knew each other? The guard captain didn't think much of it. He stepped forward and bowed to Su Jian. "Greetings, Great Master. What instructions do you have for me?" Su Jian walked in front of Chu Qingyan, his clothes spotless. Then he clasped his hands together and turned to the guard captain. This poor monk knows this young benefactor. Could the guard captain not pursue the matter of her getting lost? The person in front of him was a holy monk that His Majesty had spent a lot of effort to invite from elsewhere. The guard captain didn't dare to offend him, but it was his duty. This subordinate dares not disobey Great Master's orders. But this young lady is indeed suspicious. Although she got lost, she couldn't have walked near Her Royal Highness the Third Princess's palace. When Chu Qingyan saw this person's respectful attitude towards Su Jian, she immediately straightened her back and pouted at the guard captain. Full of grievances, she defended herself. Little Yen just followed Great Master's directions and walked here. I didn't expect Great Master to have the same poor sense of direction as Little Yen. When the guard captain heard this, he immediately turned to look at Great Master Su Jian, only to see the Great Master with his eyes closed and chanting. He couldn't ask Great Master if he had given the wrong directions. Otherwise, he would be offended if he hurt Great Master's reputation. The guard captain cupped his hands and said, "Since Great Master has vouched for me, this subordinate will not pursue the matter. This subordinate will take his leave." With that, the guard captain led his men away in orderly steps. Seeing that they were out of danger, Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to look at the person beside her, and recovered her usual smile. "Master, monks don't lie. Did you break your precepts just now?" Su Jian opened his eyes. There was a smile in his eyes, but there was no sadness or joy. This penniless monk did not admit to anything just now. Everything was just that patron's conjecture. This penniless monk just did not correct it. Chu Qingyan shrugged. "I realize that even though I haven't seen you for a long time, your eloquence hasn't improved." Su Jian faintly smiled. Long time no see. Benefactor Chu has grown much taller. Chu Qingyan accepted his compliment generously. Great master. Thank you for saving me just now. Chu Qingyan bowed slightly as she expressed her gratitude in a natural and sincere manner. Almsgiver Chu, there's no need to be so polite. Su Jian returned the gesture. Chu Qingyan hugged the cloth and followed Su Jian to a deserted palace wall. Why did master bring me here? Chu Qingyan asked curiously. This penniless monk felt that Benefactor Chu must have a lot of questions to ask, so this penniless monk found a place where no one would disturb us. Su Jian replied with a faint smile. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. This person's guess was really accurate. She did have a lot of questions to ask, but she couldn't bring herself to ask earlier. Now that he brought them up himself, she wouldn't hold back. Master Su Jian, why did you appear in the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace? As soon as this question came out, Chu Qingyan immediately thought of the answer. This was because she recalled the news she had heard in the tea house. That mysterious senior monk was most likely this person in front of her. Guessing was one thing, but confirming it was another. A few months ago, this penniless monk was invited by the emperor of the Jiang Kingdom to chant sutras and exorcise evil spirits. Su Jian said with a faint smile, not hiding anything. Chant sutras and exorcise evil spirits? Exorcise evil spirits? Why does it sound like a Taoist priest who performs rituals? Chu Qingyan touched her nose. She couldn't be blamed for thinking this way, because this was how it was portrayed on TV. Su Jian didn't mind her disrespectful words and explained, the Buddha's teachings are in the language. Those who hear it will be enlightened, and they can prove their Tao. All laws are illusory. The Buddha has supernatural powers, and he can use secret curses to change the real and the fake. The scriptures of the Buddha are only about laws and curses. Monks and nuns who have cultivated and learned must follow the scriptures, and follow the scriptures. You must. Okay. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to interrupt his long speech. Although she knew a little about Buddhism, such a long speech made her dizzy. Su Jian wasn't displeased by her interruption. He put his palms together as usual, and chanted Amitabha. Master, I have nothing else to ask. I have something important to do now, so I'll leave first. If we meet again, we can talk about the old days. Chu Qingyan felt that if she delayed any longer, today's trip would be ruined. Ignoring the doubts in her heart, she wanted to leave. Su Jian said, Almsgiver Chu, don't be impulsive. Yaoyan Palace isn't a place you can enter as you wish. The security inside is even stricter than outside. Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks. It wasn't because she couldn't enter Yaoyan Palace, but because he was familiar with it. How do you know? Seeing the deep doubts in Chu Qingyan's eyes, Su Jian still had a faint smile on his face. In fact, I've been staying in Yaoyan Palace reciting sutras and Buddhist scriptures for the third princess to sleep peacefully. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She had taken the risk to sneak into Yaoyan Palace to find out about Jiang Yunyao's condition. Then she could go back and describe it to Yan Luo and Ethereal to find out what the cause was. Now that the person in the know was right in front of her, Chu Qingyan seemed to have grasped at a life-saving straw. She asked excitedly, Then does Master know about the third princess's condition? She's been in a coma for a long time, and she wakes up less and less frequently. She coughs with blood in her coughs, and her face is pale and bloodless. As for other symptoms, I don't know. He wasn't a doctor, so he described it based on the surface. Chu Qingyan was overjoyed. Perhaps she wouldn't have been able to find out this information, even if she had made this trip. Master Su Jian, thank you so much. Chu Qingyan beamed with joy. Looking at her innocent smile, Su Jian curved his lips into a smile. You're welcome. After not seeing her for a few months, she had really grown up a lot. Not only her height, but even the way she spoke and acted had matured. Time could destroy a person, but it could also make a person. Su Jian didn't know how far she would go in the future as she continued to grow. He looked forward to that day's arrival, but he also hoped that it would come later. He couldn't explain the reason behind it. Just as he was deep in thought, the person in front of him suddenly put on a guarded expression. That's not right. Why are you telling me this? Moreover, you should already know about our meeting in Sichuan. When it happened, you weren't invited to the Jiang kingdom, right? But you don't seem at all surprised that I'm here. Chu Qingyan looked at him with a frown. She didn't believe that there was such a coincidence in this world that they would meet by chance in the Jiang kingdom. Chapter 468. Su Jian couldn't help but find it funny when he saw her so guarded. She was still as alert as ever. Unfortunately, she was disappointed. He didn't have any ulterior motives. This penniless monk lives outside of the secular world. The conflicts and hidden struggles of the mortal world have nothing to do with this penniless monk. So almsgiver Chu need not worry. This penniless monk is not a talkative person. Whether you are in Sichuan Kingdom or Jiang Kingdom, it makes no difference to this penniless monk. Su Jian smiled at her. He spoke at a steady pace, not at all affected by her questioning. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes at him. Although she felt that he should be telling the truth, she felt that she couldn't believe him so easily, because she still had other considerations. Then let me ask you, why did you tell me about the third princess without hiding anything? Chu Qingyan asked again. The green monk's robes fluttered even though there was no wind. The beautiful figure of the plum blossom behind him couldn't compare to the cinnabar between his eyebrows. He opened his mouth slightly, and his voice seemed to come from beyond the 9 heavens. It was beautiful and full of mystery. Because you need it. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Although she didn't want to admit it, the person in front of her always gave her the illusion that he could see through everything. She didn't like this feeling. She looked up and stared at him. What do you mean by we need it? What do we need? A chance to live. Su Jian answered truthfully. Su Jian answered truthfully. He could feel her dislike for him. He didn't know what he had done to offend her. Every time he saw her, she would raise her thorns and treat him with caution. He had been in this world for so many years, but this was the first time he had met such a girl. She was soft on the outside but hard on the inside. She was kind but had thorns. The words she said could be disgraceful, but they could also be full of reason, leaving you speechless and unable to defend yourself. She was not restricted by the rules of the world. She was like a bird that came from beyond the heavens. Her eyes were veiled, and you couldn't see through her. This was a strange girl. Su Jian said to himself in his heart. The moment he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. This person always had a benevolent look on his face as he said things that would shock people to death. How do you know? Chu Qingyan asked in surprise. The news of Big Ice being poisoned had not spread. At most, only the instigators knew. Even the Sichuan emperor only announced that Big Ice's whereabouts were unknown. But from Su Jian's words, could it be that Big Ice being poisoned was no longer a secret? If that was the case and even an outsider like Su Jian knew about it, then wouldn't their whereabouts in the Jiang kingdom be exposed? Chu Qingyan was terrified. But she didn't show it. Although Chu Qingyan did not say it out loud, Su Jian could still sense her emotions from her tone. Su Jian knew that she had misunderstood. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. People could really scare people to death. She felt that she would be scared to death a few times each time. But what did he mean by according to the Buddha's instructions? What did the Buddha tell you? Chu Qingyan didn't believe him, but she couldn't help but ask. Heaven's secrets must not be revealed. Su Jian chanted Umitba after he finished speaking. Chu Qingyan cursed silently in her heart. He was always deliberately mystifying. What else could he be if he wasn't a great swindler? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and asked, since the Buddha is so powerful, can you help me ask which palace the ice crystal flower is in? This Voidwalker showed a troubled expression. Chu Qingyan took a step back. Why don't you ask the Buddha why the third princess is bedridden? Is there a secret behind it? Su Jian found it funny. Everything is predestined. I don't understand. Even if I know, I can't reveal it. I can only say that it's up to you. Chu Qingyan's face fell. She looked deceived. What do you mean by the Buddha's instructions? It's all a lie. Didn't they say that the Buddha is merciful? Her Highness has been cautious and conscientious for so many years, protecting the country and accumulating so much merit. But in the end, her life is in danger. Why doesn't the Buddha take pity on her? Why doesn't the Buddha save the people who should be saved? Chu Qingyan's question didn't make Su Jian's expression change. His eyes were clear as he said earnestly, His Royal Highness protected the country and saved the people from disaster. This is a fact. But it's also a fact that his hands are stained with blood. There are conflicts between countries, and there are friends and foes between citizens. However, in Buddhism, all beings are equal. Therefore, His Highness King Ying not only has redemption in his hands, but also slaughter. His merits can only offset his faults. Chu Qingyan admitted that what he said made sense, but she didn't want to be at a disadvantage in front of him. Even if what you said makes sense, there are 3 things a person can't choose when they are born into this world. One of them is their parents. He was born into the royal family, so the responsibilities he has to bear are not something he can decide. This also determines the path he will take in the future. Killing is not what he wants. No one wants to live their whole life in a struggle. And some people may be born poor, but the world is peaceful. They can live and work in peace. They do good deeds every day, which is what you call accumulating good deeds. In the future, they will have the priority to choose in the 6 paths of reincarnation. The Buddha says that all life is equal, but from this point of view, it is ultimately not equal. Su Jian listened attentively to her words. She always surprised him in every debate. Almsgiver Chu's words make sense, but you're only judging from one aspect. It's too one-sided. Reincarnation isn't just one life. When one life ends, the next life will begin. Where one is reborn comes from the previous life. Everything is just fate. Chu Qingyan shook her head. Is there really a next life for people? Is it just to comfort themselves or to deceive themselves? Anyway, I don't believe it. I just want to grasp the present. Su Jian didn't say anything. For a person with an obsession, you can't change it no matter how much you say. Then, Great Master, I won't ask you to ask the Buddha. And I won't argue with you about the inequality of all life. Can you do me a little favor? Chu Qingyan suddenly blinked her big eyes and looked at him intently. Su Jian wasn't surprised by her change of expression. Almsgiver Chu, please speak. He replied with a smile. He didn't agree to help, but directly asked what it was. This gave Chu Qingyan a headache. What if she said it and he refused? She didn't think much and said directly, I want to know the extent of the 3rd princess's illness, and whether it can be cured. So can you take me to Yaoyin Palace? Chu Qingyan looked at him sincerely. If they could know the 3rd princess's illness, and if it could be cured, then they would have a bargaining chip to negotiate with the emperor of Jiang Kingdom. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Chapter 469. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she was afraid that he wouldn't agree, so she continued, Great Master, don't you Buddhists always preach that saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda? Moreover, I heard that the 3rd princess is very popular among the people. She's kind and beautiful. How can you Buddhists bear to leave such a good girl in the lurch? Don't you say that monks are compassionate? Su Jian looked at her quietly. After she finished speaking, he smiled faintly and said, Benefactor Chu, this penniless monk didn't say that he would leave her in the lurch. Please don't pin such a crime on this penniless monk. Moreover, this penniless monk doesn't work on this penniless monk. Seeing that he saw through her thoughts, Chu Qingyan smiled embarrassedly, but she quickly reacted. You mean that you're willing to help me? Su Jian nodded. Just as Benefactor Chu said, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. Moreover, isn't being compassionate your impression of us Buddhists? We can't disappoint you, right? Chu Qingyan touched her nose awkwardly. Why did she have the misconception that this person was using her words to tease her? Thinking of this, she looked at him suspiciously, but she saw that he was still standing there with no joy or sorrow in his eyes. The smile on his lips was as indifferent as usual. She thought that perhaps she was overthinking things. The person in front of her only knew how to talk about grand principles other than chanting scriptures in Buddhism. How could he suddenly be enlightened? She stopped worrying about this and asked, Then how can I enter Yaoyin Palace? Su Jian pondered for a moment, then slowly said, 2 days later, this penniless monk will be chanting scriptures for the 3rd princess. You can come to Jingyan Temple to find this penniless monk then. Okay. Chu Qingyan readily agreed. Now that this matter was resolved, she relaxed. Then she asked curiously, Great Master, will your chanting help the third princess's condition? She wasn't deliberately looking for trouble, but she was truly curious. Su Jian shook his head. This won't help her condition. It's just that the third princess often has nightmares when she sleeps. But even if she sleeps more than she wakes up, being constantly in nightmares will worsen her mental strength. Someone told His Majesty that the third princess had provoked something she shouldn't have, so His Majesty invited this penniless monk to exorcise the evil spirit for the third princess. After so many days, this penniless monk has only been able to help the third princess sleep peacefully. However, this is only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. No one has found the true cause of the illness, but from the looks of it, the third princess's condition is worsening. It seemed that Jiang Yinyao's illness was more serious than she thought. Alright, thank you Grandmaster for helping Qing Yan so much. I still have to rush back to Thousand Feathers Palace, so I won't be accompanying you. T. He had originally planned to help her, but she was too guarded, so he could only wait for her to bring it up herself. The King of England's star had suddenly dimmed in the past few months, but it hadn't fallen. Now it was slowly regaining its light. This was probably all thanks to Chu Qingyan. Her appearance had changed the King of England and saved him. At the same time, she would affect the entire world in the following days. The Junlan Kingdom was an example, and so was the Jiang Kingdom. Su Jian put his palms together and chanted softly, Buddha is merciful. Ba. But Su Jian didn't know that she had changed not only Xiao Su, but also him. When Chu Qingyan returned to the entrance of the Thousand Feathers Palace, she happened to see Steward Yi leaving with the cloth. She saw that Chu Qingyan had only just returned. Due to the presence of the eunuch, she said a few words to her. Chu Qingyan tactfully bowed her head and listened. At this moment, the old servant said to Steward Yi, The Empress likes those cloth very much. Go back and prepare more to send to the palace. Steward Yi was very pleased and repeatedly agreed. Then, he led everyone out of the palace. Chu Qingyan returned to the Yi residence and went straight to the study. At this moment, there was only Xiao Su in the study. Big Ice Block, I've gained a lot from this trip to the palace. People were in high spirits when faced with happy events. Chu Qingyan's feet carried the wind as she walked briskly towards him. Seeing her return, Xiao Su felt that the cold room was suddenly a little livelier. He put down the book in his hand and looked at her. His brows unconsciously relaxed. What did you gain? Chu Qingyan jumped in front of him and smiled proudly. Big Ice Block, do you know who the eminent monk that the Jiang Kingdom spent a lot of effort to invite is? Xiao Su raised his brows and said without hesitation. Su Jian? Chu Qingyan was stunned. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She murmured, Big Ice Block, you're really too amazing. How did you guess it was him? The eminent monk invited by the Jiang Kingdom, and you know him. He's the only one who fulfills these two conditions. It's not hard to guess. Xiao Su's expression was calm and collected, but his mood was also lightened by the little fellow's praise. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. That's true. But you know how surprised I was when I saw him inside. And he was the one who saved me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to come back. Seeing her eyes widen like copper bells, filled with lingering fear and relief, but they did not lose their adorableness, Xiao Su's lips curved. This is your gain? Hearing this, she immediately shook her head. Of course not. Then, she recounted her conversation with Su Jian in full detail to him. After that, she tilted her head and looked at him. Her tone was slightly mischievous as she said, Big Ice Block, this is my gain today. Please review it. Yes, if we can find out the third princess's illness, we'll have another bargaining chip in our hands. After listening to the little fellow's description, although she did not elaborate on the process and was still talking cheerfully with him, he could still feel her panic when she was discovered. His gaze softened and his tone became warmer. At this moment, Chu Qingyan was immersed in this gain, and did not notice the change in the expression of the person in front of her. She said happily, That's right, that's right. When the time comes, I'll bring Yanluo and let her take a look at the third princess's illness. If she can figure it out, our ice crystal flower might be settled. Perhaps influenced by her, Xiao Su's brows softened. Thank you for your hard work. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan bent down and crossed her hands to support her chin. She looked at him with shifty eyes. In that case, does Big Ice Block have any rewards? What do you want as a reward? Xiao Su's lips curled into a faint smile. His black eyes lost some of their coldness. The little fellow was quite muddle-headed when she should be, but shrewd when she should not be. However, with this kind of temperament, at least she would not be at a disadvantage, so he was not worried. Chapter 470. Let me think. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes, and suddenly her eyes lit up. Big Ice Cube, after your poison is cured, how about we go for a walk? How about taking a break and enjoying the beautiful scenery of the mountains and rivers? When she said this, her eyes revealed a trace of longing. Traveling has always been my wish. Their dormitory had long decided to go on a graduation trip in their 4th year. Unfortunately, before she finished her studies, the whole dynasty had been turned upside down when she opened her eyes. Up to you. He smiled lightly and calmly. He knew that her thoughts were very simple. What she had always wanted to do was to travel around the world, and he had heard her talk about it countless times. Chu Qingyan felt that these two words sounded very comfortable, generous, and generous. Play as you please, spend as you please, and toss as you please. Unlike the current Phoenix man, who haggles over every penny and calculates every cent clearly, Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes in satisfaction and began to think about where to go first and where to go again. Slowly, a route appeared in her mind. The happiest thing in the world was nothing more than me bringing you along, and you bringing money. The Big Ice Cube was her mobile ATM. Chu Qingyan thought happily, but she did not know that her expression had already fallen into someone's eyes. As far as he was concerned, the future was no longer that important to him. He had experienced loneliness, achieved glory, and was also in a difficult situation. For the first half of his life, he could not choose for himself, but for the following days he did not want to repeat the same mistakes. Now, he only wanted to be responsible for the little fellow. Gratitude and grudges, wealth and power, they had nothing to do with him. Chu Qingyan accompanied Xiao Su in the study for a while before returning to her room to change her clothes. Duguqing was sick, so she had to go and see her to be at ease. An hour later, she appeared in Duguqing's room. At this time, only Duguqing was in the room. Chu Qingyan looked at her pale face lying on the bed, and her heart could not help but clench. Why did you suddenly have a fever? Has the fever gone down? Did someone come to see you? Did you take medicine? Why is there no one serving you? Chu Qingyan threw a series of questions at Duguqing. Duguqing was coughing at this time. Hearing Chu Qingyan's words, she showed a rare helpless look. You have so many questions. Which one should I answer first? Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose when she saw Duguqing rolling her eyes. Let's do it one by one. I'm just worried about you. I don't know how I got sick either. My fever has just subsided. Sister Yanluo came over to check on me and prescribed me some medicine. The lass is brewing the medicine now. Perhaps she was really too tired. Duguqing's tone was not as energetic as before, and she looked sickly. She really answered all the questions. If it was on a normal day, she would probably argue with Chu Qingyan a few times. It's good that your fever is gone. Drink some medicine and rest for 2 more days. You'll be able to jump around in no time. Chu Qingyan sat down on the edge of the bed and adjusted the quilt for her. His tone was no longer anxious and worried, and he was relieved. Running a fever in the middle of winter was no joke. Once a fever broke out, it would take a long time. Did you make any progress at the palace today? Duguqing asked in a hoarse voice. Chu Qingyan nodded and gave her a summary of her findings. After she finished, she sighed. I didn't expect that the eminent monk we were talking about was actually from the Sichuan kingdom. Duguqing leaned against the bed wall and smiled. Sometimes life is like this. Just when you're at the end of your rope, you'll suddenly see the light at the end of the tunnel. Perhaps this Master Su Jian is your benefactor. He's a world-renowned senior monk. The people from our kingdom hold him in high regard. Benefactor? Chu Qingyan was taken aback. She recalled all the Buddhist teachings that he had been talking about, and all the mysterious things that had happened to him here. Chu Qingyan still felt that it was fine as long as this person was not here to trick them. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Duguqing couldn't help but be amused by her reaction. They also worshipped Buddha in the modern world, but they didn't worship someone like they did in the ancient times. Chu Qingyan held her chin and thought for a moment. She thought that the ancient people probably wouldn't be able to accept this. She said, "It's a long story. Anyway, I think he's just a normal person. It's just that you've beautified him too much." "Is that so? I feel like you're prejudiced against him. But he's already more than willing to help you. Don't burn the bridge after crossing it." Duguqing shook her head. She was very disdainful of her behavior of repaying evil with good. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Was she prejudiced against him? Was she? Just as she was questioning herself, Duguqing suddenly coughed. Chu Qingyan hurriedly patted her back to soothe her, and forgot about it. After sitting for a while, Chu Qingyan got up to leave. "Quickly rest. I'll go first. I'll come back to see you later." "You go ahead. I'll sit for a while more." Duguqing waved her hand. Seeing her tired face but not resting, Chu Qingyan was a little puzzled. But she still nodded and left. Listening to the sound of the door being closed, Duguqing smiled faintly. She was indeed very tired, but just now the maidservant went to find Yi Lingfeng. If he came later and she fell asleep, she would not be able to see him, so she forced herself to hold on to her spiritual power and waited for him. When the servant girl serving Duguqing finished reporting to Yi Lingfeng about her illness, Yi Lingfeng threw down the book in his hand and quickly walked towards the door. As he walked, he asked, "Is the illness serious? Have you asked anyone to take a look?" Yi Lingfeng was tall, long-legged and anxious, so he walked very quickly. The maidservant could only jog to keep up with him. She panted as she replied, "When I woke up this morning, Miss Dugu had a fever, so I asked Miss Chung to come over. Miss Chung gave Miss Dugu a pill and helped Miss Dugu make the medicine. The herbs are now being boiled in the kitchen." Hearing this, Yi Lingfeng was relieved. But it was also at this time that he suddenly woke up. Duguqing was just sick. Why was he so agitated? If he went over to see her now, would she misunderstand? Thinking of this, Yi Lingfeng stopped in his tracks. The servant girl behind him was puzzled. "Young master, you're not going? Help me pass a message. Let her rest well. If she needs any herbs, she can ask you to go to the storeroom to get it." Yi Lingfeng's expression returned to normal as he instructed. He was clearly anxious and worried just now, but now he was verbally concerned. The servant girl didn't know why her young master's expression changed so quickly, but she still obediently agreed. The door was pushed open. Duguqing's face was originally full of anticipation, but when she saw that it was the servant girl who came back alone, the light in her eyes was extinguished. Especially when the servant girl said her young master's instructions. The smile on her lips disappeared without a trace. Duguqing's eyes were a little sad. Sometimes, if she forced herself to stay awake for too long without a response, she would be tired. Just like now, she already didn't have any extra energy to hold on. Closing her eyes, she fell into a deep darkness. Chapter 471. 2 days passed quickly. Chu Qingyan brought Chengyan Luo to Jingyun Temple. Jingyun Temple was the largest Buddhist temple in the capital of Jiang Kingdom. Chu Qingyan was in a dilemma as she looked at the bustling main hall filled with people and incense. How was she going to find Su Jian in such a big place? At this moment, a young novice monk was standing at the place where people were offering incense money. Chu Qingyan went up to him and asked, "Young master, we're looking for Master Su Jian from Sichuan Kingdom. Can you introduce us to him?" The young novice monk sized them up, then put his palms together and bowed to Chu Qingyan with a smile. "Are you almsgiver Chu from Sichuan Kingdom?" Chu Qingyan immediately nodded and admitted, "Yes, I am. Master Su Jian told me to wait here early this morning. Sure enough, you're here. Please follow me." With that, the young novice monk gestured for them to follow him. Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo nodded to the young novice monk, then followed him to the back of the main hall. Jingyan Temple was not made up of just one temple. There were several other halls behind the main hall. After they followed the young novice monk through several halls, the view in front of them suddenly widened. Lush greenery filled the air, and a bamboo forest appeared before them. Master Su Jian lives behind the bamboo forest, the young novice monk explained, then took the lead and walked in. It was rare to see such lush greenery in winter. Chu Qingyan's eyes revealed a hint of joy, and she felt much more relaxed. After entering the bamboo forest, they saw a snow-white figure sitting in the pavilion. His posture was calm, and his appearance was as gentle as jade. There was a pure and holy smile on his lips, like a lotus flower. "Master, they're here," the young novice monk said respectfully with a bow. He had already seen Chu Qingyan and the other two walking over. After the young novice monk finished speaking, he nodded to them with a smile. The young novice monk quickly retreated. "Master, I've brought a good friend who's good at medicine. I hope he can come with me to treat the third princess." Even though Su Jian wasn't surprised to see Cheng Yanluo, Chu Qingyan felt that it wasn't appropriate for her to bring Cheng Yanluo over without asking for his permission. Cheng Yanluo stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Master Su Jian. I'm Cheng Yanluo." Su Jian returned the greeting and said with a smile, "Benefactor Cheng, there's no need to be so polite. Next, I'll have to ask the two of you to change your attire." Half a cup of tea's time later, Chu Qingyan looked at her own monk's robes and Cheng Yanluo's head. Her hair was hidden under her monk's hat, and so was hers. She couldn't help but say to Su Jian, "When you advised me to join Buddhism, I didn't agree. Who would have thought that one day I would put on monk's robes and become a little nun?" If almsgiver Chu wishes to join Buddhism now, it is not too late. Although the green monk's robes were plain and simple, they surprisingly fit her well. Moreover, they couldn't conceal her noble and mischievous aura. Su Jian couldn't help asking. Even though he knew that she wasn't interested in Buddhism, Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. "Master, why are you still hung up on this? Obsession isn't good." Su Jian only smiled and didn't answer. On the other hand, Cheng Yanluo's casual attitude toward Chu Qingyan in front of Su Jian was inconceivable. After all, he was the holy monk in their hearts. After dressing up, a young novice monk came in and said that the carriage was ready and they could set off at any time. Thus, the three of them set off for the palace. The carriage was large enough for 4 or 5 people to ride together. The three of them were now sitting together in the carriage. Su Jian's eyes were closed as he fiddled with the prayer beads in his hand. He looked like he was detached from the world. Cheng Yanluo, on the other hand, leaned close to Chu Qingyan's ear and whispered, "Little girl, this Master Su Jian looks so young and handsome. He doesn't lose to Yi Lingfeng at all. It's a pity that he became a monk." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh at her sigh. "Have you taken a fancy to him? It's not impossible for monks to return to the secular world. As long as he has feelings for you, everything will be fine." Before she could finish, Cheng Yanluo gave her a chestnut. "Little girl, why are you spouting nonsense? Can't you think of something normal?" Cheng Yanluo's tone was angry and embarrassed. She didn't know if the master had heard her. Chu Qingyan rubbed her bun head, feeling very wronged. She was telling the truth. However, she didn't know if it was just her imagination, but she felt as if Su Jian had coughed lightly. Could he have caught a cold too? Because of what she said, Cheng Yanluo ignored her. Chu Qingyan couldn't find anyone to talk to, so she stared at the wall of the carriage until they reached the palace. Entering the palace went smoothly because the carriage they took was sent by the palace. Thinking back to when she and Steward E entered the palace, they had to go through layers of checks. It was unlike now, where they could enter without any obstructions. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh. Comparisons were odious. After alighting from the carriage, Su Jian led the two of them to Yayan Palace. Along the way, they were unimpeded. All the palace servants and guards they met took the initiative to bow and make way for them. This made Chu Qingyan even more surprised. It turned out that Su Jian held such a high position in the hearts of the people. She looked at Su Jian's indifferent expression and recalled her previous behavior towards him. She couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, no one had discovered them. Otherwise they would have become the enemy of the people. With Su Jian as their living signboard, the three of them quickly arrived at Yaoyan Palace. Perhaps they knew that Su Jian would be here today, so the palace doors were wide open. The palace maid who had talked with Commandery Princess Ning before was standing at the door to welcome them. As soon as she saw Su Jian, she went to greet him. "Greetings, master. Today my princess was still talking about when you would come." Seeing Su Jian, Ryue breathed a sigh of relief and said with joy, "Did the princess sleep well last night?" Su Jian asked as he walked. Ryue sighed and said, "The princess has been waking up more frequently recently. Last night, she woke up 7 or 8 times. I feel sorry for her." Su Jian nodded. It seemed that the princess's illness had worsened. After that, Ryue saw Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo. She felt that they were very strange, so she couldn't help asking, "Master, who are they?" Su Jian smiled as before and said, "They are my friends who are good at medical skills. I want to take them to the princess." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo put their palms together and bowed to Ryue. Ryue just asked casually. Hearing that they were good at medical skills, she was happy but worried. "Our princess has seen many doctors, but there is no progress. Even our princess is about to give up." "Miss Ryue, don't worry. We'll know after taking her pulse," Cheng Yanluo said. "All right, then follow this servant." At this time they just arrived at the inner hall. Ryue made a gesture of invitation, so they stepped into third princess's room. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.